Director Cicada,
Here.
Director Thomas, Director Davidson, Director Underhill,
Here.
President Retterman.
Members of the public. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment?
Yeah, what do you think? Should I just do the full?
I'm sorry, I forgot your name. John. I'd like to thank John for publicizing CCWD information on our Facebook website for citizens of Copper Cove. I think it's excellent. I think it's excellent outreach, transparency. It beats me trying to put stuff out there a correct way. It beats people trying to read between the lines and so forth, hearing directly from the horse's mouth. So I just want to say that John did a really good job setting that up, and we appreciate the communication. Thank you.
Great to hear. Thanks. Thanks for all. More public comment?
Oh, yeah, Leroy Fonseca here.
Who's
I'm
this?
here as a public
What's your name?
comment. Bertha Underhill,
And where are you from?
Evans Pass, Arnold.
Oh, okay.
Okay, is that all right? Listen, I only have 3 minutes, so I have to talk fast.
250.
My main intent is to talk about our conference a couple weeks ago, and we'll cover it later, I'm sure, but these were just some thoughts that I had. I want to congratulate Calaveras County Water District. This is the first time that all 5 of us attended the conference, and CCWD was not Contra Costa Water District. Calaveras County made a big impact down there in Monterey, you know, because we were all over the place, starting with Scott, Michael, and all the rest of the directors. And I'm just so proud of the board and the appearance down at the thing. But my other task today is to acknowledge Scott Ratterman for his election as JPIA. What are you? Something for JPIA. Okay,
Aqua JPIA Executive Committee member, period.
right. Scott, I tried to find a crown. There are no crowns in Evans Pass. Sorry, I
There's a
wanted
Burger
to.
King in Valley Springs. All you do is call.
So I really wanted to recognize you, and so I brought you this.
Here's the tiara.
Oh, perfect. Very nice.
Oh.
Take it. I did.
Thank you very, very much.
I think it's important that you wear that at all times.
Yes.
That's great.
There's your new headshot.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why, thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Bertha.
I'm through. Thank you.
Bertha, you were the only one down there that got a personal invitation in front of the group from David Egerton.
Oh, that's right.
Man, oh, man. Yeah. Everybody knows Bertha now.
Well, thank you, Bertha. Appreciate it. And on that subject, I appreciate all the support I had with Becca and Michael with helping with my speech and campaign, and everyone in staff, definitely my fellow board members. Really appreciate all your support there in person, and your congratulations afterward. It does mean a lot to me to have that much support. I think I had more support in the room of any other candidate running there. I think that was obvious.
Well, we were the noisiest for you.
Yes, you were. Made me feel comfortable and at home. Thank you. Thank you again. Moving on. Our consent agenda, the following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion. We have items 3A,
Acceptance?
3A through 3H.
Well, I'd like to pull 3G.
Okay, we're gonna pull 3G. We need a motion for the rest.
I'll move for acceptance of 3A, B, C, D, E, F, H.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Becca, can you take roll?
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
President Retterman.
Yes. And item 3G, take it away.
Okay, well, Minna, I just wanted to bring this because we are opposing, or Aqua recommends that we oppose legislative changes to the water rights, and they handed out this little card. I think everybody got one of these cards. And my question is, are we as a board going to be writing a letter?
Yes,
Mhm.
so the package is, the bills that are in the packet today are the water rights reform legislation proposals that we'll be opposing, and we'll sign on to Aqua's opposition. We'll also send our own letter. in
Okay,
opposition
that's
to those
what I
bills.
wanted to
Yeah,
make sure of.
absolutely.
And just so, we heard a lot about these four bills at Aqua this, a couple weeks ago. Mountain Counties is also, and our legislative team is also opposing, all four of these water rights bills. So anything further on 3G?
Move for acceptance?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Becca?
Director Cicada,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Underhill,
Yes.
President Retterman.
Yes. Okay, item 4, new business, discussion direction regarding the updated 5-year financial plan and rate communication strategy. Jeffrey Myers.
So I'm gonna kick this one off. It's gonna be a team effort. So we have Jeff on the line. We also have Habib Isaac on the line, who you're familiar with, our rate consultant, and Eric Scriven with NHA Advisors, who is a financial advisor that's helping the district with this as well. But we're also going to start with two different sets of slides to talk through. One is when we get to to Habib's presentation, it's really an update from the May 3rd meeting. We're not rolling out rate design yet, but we have an update to an updated version of the 5-year financial plan presentation that we'll talk through. And there have been some changes since the May 3rd meeting. But we want to start with a presentation. We've been also working at the same time on public outreach and how we're going to really frame this discussion and approach our public outreach discussion. And so Kelly Richards has been involved in that. John, in his short time here, has already really gotten up to speed and put a lot of work into it, along with the other members of our public relations team. And so we're gonna let John walk through some slides for the board. It's kind of high level at this point, but really what we're looking for is input from the board on the approach that we're taking and any specific suggestions that the board has on other information or other points that you'd like to see as we move forward through this process in our public outreach presentations. So with that, I'll turn it over to John, and then we'll talk through where we're at right now and where this is going, hopefully.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, honorable board members. John Osborne, your External Affairs Manager. So what you see before you is, as Michael indicated, it is a framework of our outreach to the community members as we move through this process. And as directors, it's important for us to kind of check and make sure that our points are aligning with your communication methods and the points that are important to you and the constituents and our customers. So thanks. So that's the face page. Nothing really to discuss there. So just a reminder to you guys that we're going to be presenting this forward facing. So we want to, in addition to discussing, the rate study that we're moving through, it's also important for us to take the opportunity to educate our customers about what we do and how we do it. And that includes our mission, which kind of drives everything that we do. Again, this slide, you guys all know your districts, but some of our customers may or may not know which district they lie in. And so we just want to display that graphically. We'll make sure that that is the most up-to-date district map, as well as maybe taking the opportunity at the next board meeting to grab some photos of you guys so that they're nice, fresh and updated.
John, can I say one thing on the map?
Yes, ma'am.
My district was recently changed and I see that, but I don't see Vallecito on here. And shouldn't that, and that's part of Bertha's now with Murphy's, right?
We'll make sure that the most current lands. are
Okay.
in.
Yeah, everybody knows this is not the most current one.
Right.
No,
Okay.
it's one I stole off the website.
Okay.
Or
Website?
stole from somewhere.
Okay.
The next is to place kind of some context around how we've built out our systems and how we purvey water is to understand our past. And this is actually directly out of our strategic plan. I thought it was a very unique graphic to be able to show the public about where we've been, how much we've grown, how we've modernized over the past 7 years. So I thought that was a good point of education for our customers.
Establishing the scholarship, I don't think that needs to be on there. I mean, it should be infrastructure or specific. I mean, that's just my
I
opinion.
agree.
2013.
What's that?
Yeah.
It's just, in
It's out right
2013,
here.
it's just, I mean, almost everything on here is infrastructure or policy related, and that's just, I just don't feel it fits in there.
I agree with Jeff.
Full board, I think it should be left.
I think it's necessary.
To it goes.
Well,
Well, how does the rest of the board feel? I'm wondering.
I agree with you, Cindy.
Okay, so, and and Russ, or Scott doesn't.
Scott was one of the first scholarship recipients.
But that, I was in high school at the time.
On the extended plan.
If we left it, it could just open up all of waxes. You're spending our rates on that? No, we're not. Then you have to go into more detail.
I mean, honestly, the list itself, I mean, is there, I can barely read this, that's my fault, but, ownership of the slurry line, I mean, was that a significant step? I mean, are we talking about milestones here? What are we talking about? I know it's not on.
yeah, this was intended to just show, with milestones.
Thank you.
essentially.
Well, maybe we just, dig a little deeper and look back. I mean,
That's good.
honestly,
Significant.
like Jenny Lynn Water Treatment Plant expansion in 2006. When was it established?
Okay, I'm gonna throw an opinion in there. This does not belong on this list. It is such a, I don't think it should, I agree with Director Davidson that the scholarship program is not a significant item. It is something that we do. We do a lot of things that aren't on here, though.
You know, even, I mean, again, I don't, I mean, I think that these are important, but, you know, I mean, you know, when do we, you know, solidify some of our water rights?
Oh, that would be a good
I
one to
mean-
have on there, huh?
That's a hard one to nail down. That's always an evolving.
We'll just leave it
An
blank,
ongoing
right? Put it
process.
in the, you know, put it in the 1946. You know, besides adopting, you know, you know, we've taken the role of, you know, utilizing, protecting the water rights. I mean, I think,
Well,
you know.
it's mentioned in
You know,
1947.
so I think what we'll do is revisit this entirely, and because this was done as a part of the strategic plan, but since then, when we developed presentations for the actual 75th anniversary party we had, we came across, I think, some information that should be included in here, and then some of this that can come out. So I think that the note is we'll revisit these and make sure that the text is larger, because that doesn't work for my eyes either.
And if we're gonna mention Flying Acres, we should mention Wallace Estates. That's our only
It is
water,
here somewhere.
is it?
2012.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. And it's our only groundwater facility.
Okay, so we'll revisit the milestone.
And maybe have some milestones that aren't dated, you know, like, cause I can think of, you know, the effort at White Pines Park, you know, I think that kind of goes along with the scholarship stuff. You know, I don't want to call it fun and games, but, you know, maybe there's some stuff that we don't need to actually put dates down that are just.
Maybe it falls into a community participation
Yeah.
category.
Right.
I like that.
You know, honestly, the recreation facilities, you know, even, you know, at Hogan Reservoir, I mean, there's, you know, the district provides, you know, participates and pays a lot of money to provide recreation facilities throughout the county. I think that's worthy. I don't know that there's a date associated with that, but there certainly is, you know, it's a big part of our budget every year, you know. So maybe we can come up with a few of those things in there like that.
Thank you for that feedback. Sorry, I was scribbling notes. So we'll move forward. No. Okay. So this is kind of where we are. We have a total of 103 facilities. Our service areas total up to 57.37 square miles. That's dispersed out through the 1,034 square miles of the county, 341 miles of water main, 74 full-time employees, 13,487 water connections, about a little over 5,000 sewer connections. We'll nail that number down, and an annual operating cost of $13.8 million. Kind of one of the important things that's not on here is in the discussion is that there's about 6 miles of line per square mile of service area. And if you look at it from a customer perspective, it's about 39.5 customers per square mile. Where that may be important is, you know, if you come from a more populated area versus the rural area that we're in, a mile may have 3,900 customers or 390 customers instead of 39.
Is this per square mile? Because I mean, it's what, 1,000 square miles in Calvert County? We don't serve the whole county, but should we do that as far as in regards of lineal foot?
Or service area. It's a good question. Yeah,
I mean,
how we
you know,
divide that up. We can look at it.
How many customers per mile of water?
Yeah, I don't know that that's significant unless you are comparing it with, unless you have comparisons with Lodi and Elk Grove.
Well, but something that is what we want to do. We want to make that comparison that, look, you know, we have 100 people per mile or whatever. And if you're down in you know, Lodi area, they've got 1,000 people.
And I think we have some of that information. I think Water Resources has some of that
That's,
information.
I think we do that enough.
We can plug that in
Right
here.
On this slide, I think it'd be very helpful, that very first number, the number of facilities, what, if we can break that down a little bit, I mean, how many sewer facilities, how many water facilities, and what
or the
Yeah.
other facilities that we're talking about there?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. David and John and I were talking about this morning. So, we always, the numbers we usually use are, 6 water service areas and the 13 wastewater service areas. But within that, David was pointing out earlier, if you just look at the number of standby generators we have 89 standby generators distributed throughout the county. Each one of those represents a different facility. It's a lift station or a pump station, or, any number of different pieces of infrastructure that we have out there. And so that's what this number captures. Treatment plants, lift stations, pump stations. I don't know if it includes, probably not PRVs, but
This is pump station, lift stations, treatment plants, nothing, not PRV, not valve, not purpose, but an actual building that could potentially have.
yeah.
I think it'd be helpful if we list with that 103, I mean,
We can ask them-
gonna break them down into how many,
We can add some detail
I
there.
mean, 13 plus 6, and then how many lift stations? With
So am I right that we've got 39
I had it at 39.55.
per mile?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an important thing to make people understand.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. My question is on the number of sewer connections. I understand services, are up and down all the time. But you were able to give us a positive on the water connections, but you couldn't on the sewer.
No, we have,
Oh, okay, so you'll update me.
Yeah, and we need to update the budget number too. That's my mistake, not John's, but our adopted operating budget last year was around 26 million.
In regards to the number of full-time employees, I can't recall, Russ hates it when I can't remember things, but it seems like 15 years ago, we had 76 employees.
I think it was 78 at the peak.
Yeah, I don't know
If I remember correctly, state
Where that-
definitely has those numbers.
where that comes in, but I think we need to have that. I don't know if there's maybe like a moving graph or something.
We have a graph that
time.
shows
Head count,
Right,
that might be informative.
but then you consolidated jobs and everything, so that plays into that number of employees.
Well, right, but I also think that that's important that we show the public that we have modernized so we can use, fewer people,
Yeah, the district has grown, regulatory compliance has become harder. A lot has happened over that period of time and we have fewer people than we did.
Right.
But you have been growing the
It has grown.
the
Yeah,
people from when I started.
that's right.
Thank you. So this slide actually links to our accomplishments video.
Oh,
I won't torture you guys. I'm sure you've all.
One drop, that's all we got.
Yeah. One video. So we would play that for the public so that they can kind of get a visual idea about when we talk about a tank or when we talk about a lift station, and they can actually see some of the work that's going on.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, in that video, I'm sure maybe it already exists. Is this just part of the 75th anniversary thing, or are we actually producing something that's different?
No, we're gonna update and we're gonna adapt. We're gonna work with that. But
Well, I think of in my district, when we had the Pattison fire and the 2 water tanks burned down, and they were able to put that above ground tank, I mean, that's a quick story, but I also want everyone to realize that was grant funded. That was 100% grant funded project. And any of these things that we put up there, I would like to see if there's a grant component of that, or if it was CIP.
okay.
Because people
Oh, good.
will want to know that, hey, the extra money we've been paying have gone to these projects. But in addition to that, we've backed up some of that with grant funding. Any of those projects that we've received grant funding or loans or low interest loans, I'd like to have that story told.
that sounds good.
Okay, just a kind of an introduction into some of the CIP projects through our strategic plan. These are our goals and objectives from the strategic plan as set forth in the plan. And so most, if not all of these, have a role or play interplay with the rate study that we're going through, specifically, the fiscal responsibility, our operational integrity, our programs, projects and initiatives. I think this is a good pre-runner to our customers to know that we're contemplating the future and how to make sure that we're conveying water safely and reliably. Next, I'll apologize for the graphic ahead of time.
No, this is brilliant.
I really-
Information on there that no one can read. You can almost say anything.
So that is actually our master CIP list, I promise. And the interesting part about that is what you see highlighted there are projects that we are not contemplating in this rate study. Those are projects that we're going to, as Director Davidson mentioned, those are the projects that we're going to chase down funding from other sources from. So it's just meant to show that we are prioritizing sometimes from a more economic side rather than a need side of what in total we're contemplating as a CIP program versus what we realistically think we can afford during this next 5 years.
Is there a category there for regulatory versus aging? Damon?
Yeah, we do have a category in a couple different project spreadsheets that we use to prioritize. We had, whether there was a regulatory compliance requirement that the current, whether the treatment plant or wastewater plant couldn't meet, or whether there was a regulatory requirement that we're going to have to ramp up for. We do have that category.
Okay.
This is just a graphic to illustrate where we've been in the current rate study that we're just, or the rate structure that we're finishing. And so you'll see there that the rates bumped somewhere between 1.7 and 1.9 adjustments over the past 5 years. That's what that graphic.
Can't we make each one of these things like only a third as tall?
We could.
Change the scale. We could change the scale.
And the other thing, where it's down, where it says outreach and community workshops, those should be plugged. There should be more than one. You should have it plugged in that process.
So are you talking about the?
Yeah, well, see, you have it on, the third one on the right, going down. I think we should have, as part of this process, there's more than just one. Or is it just reflecting here? Well,
That's just the phase or state.
yeah, actually, and you know what though, but I also think that this particular should be in the very beginning, even before we start looking at our finance stuff, but, or before we even get the rate design, let's hear what they have to say in case there's suggestions or something. But
I could see that because if you would move it up, Cindy, then we would get 20 million questions that we couldn't answer. If we
Well,
put
so
it-
the rate workshop is just that's the opportunity for the board to move forward with, and adopt the rate design, not adopt, finalize the rate design that then gets noticed, and then rate workshops and community work. There's other workshops. So there are two separate categories, is my point. I'm not
Right.
articulating that very well. There's one rate workshop, but there's other
outreach.
outreach, and it's the next step or two steps down, outreach and community workshops. those are plural.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
we're doing right now.
And here's like step 5, I think there should be an outreach after step 1 or 2 even, that just lets people know what we're doing, and
There,
the
and I
outreach
think
would be, come to these meetings, we're starting to delve in.
that's happening, and it's happening throughout this. I think maybe we need to find a way to articulate that it, at every step is community outreach, open meetings. We're inviting people to these meetings. And we appreciate Ralph's presence.
And I might, you know, in our outreach, we don't necessarily have to wait for a community meeting. You know, they can reach out to us or let us know what their thoughts are.
Right.
If we
There's a lot
have
of different
step
ways that we're
3,
doing that, and
if we
it's
have
not
step
just the
3.
workshops. Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's an ongoing, you know, kind of everyday, what can we do on that
Yeah.
front?
For the 5-year rates, are those monthly or bi-monthly? That each bill or each month?
The what?
The,
Call. You buy myself.
Fine.
Yeah, that's the bi-monthly.
okay. Could we get that to, I mean, I think it'd be a whole lot better to have it in a month, what it is monthly. Not what it is that I mean, that's what, we're in comparison, we'd be able to, I mean, people would be able to compare a lot more if they had a monthly figure, and we'd look a little bit better if we had a monthly figure. I mean, everyone has a monthly bill, and we know what it is. It'd be half, it'd look like half this. And I don't know if you understood what Director Davidson was saying is have more empty space at the top of that scale and compact that down where the top is gonna be 75 and above it have, you know, other numbers all the way up to, you know, 220. Where, you know, if you, in our, where those bars are only gonna be this big compared to the page, you know, it's only gonna be
I
this
always,
much
or,
older.
is there a
If we're
reason?
gonna have a visual,
Right,
that would
but
be.
also people do think of almost all their bills that per month is monthly.
Yeah,
I think the reason to do it this way is just because that's how we bill. That's the number people see on their bills, but we could present it as a monthly.
Well, I mean, we can, I mean, I would like to see have it done where we, like Scott says, we do the monthly bill and then we put a note at the top, billed by monthly.
Sure, we can do that.
Right, there were almost everybody that complains to me about their water bill says, I can't believe it's $120 a month.
Right.
Same
They
thing.
just don't know how often it comes.
So this next one,
on that same subject is if there, before you get to your next slide, John, sorry. If there's explain to all our customers during this process that there are other ways to pay, many different ways to pay your bills. And we encourage you to pay it every 2 months. I mean, every 2 weeks, or once a month. Find a way to split it up yourself. We can't split it up. It costs them that much more if we had to hire that many more people to do the whole entire county at one time. And that is one thing that I think is also should be explained, that we do it, why we do it bi-monthly. We're not sitting on our hands that other month. This whole, Valley Springs is getting billed 1 month and Ebbets Pass is getting billed the next month. We're doing the exact same thing, just in a different area. I think that's, why we do it. And if we wanted to do it every single month, like some people want us to do, the bills would be higher. We'd have to hire 3 more people to be able
the
to,
efficiency of bi-monthly.
yeah, to get to that efficiency.
I wonder though, how long that's gonna be the case. I mean, with the automation and, the automatic meter readers, I wonder, and it's probably better for us to collect money every month if we can financially. But it's just a matter of, at some point, we're gonna reach that tipping point where automation is gonna make it so we can do that.
It's possible. We're not there. I can tell you. It would still be a huge challenge for us. I think from a cash flow standpoint, we're okay. We're accustomed to operating this way. But it would be a big additional burden on admin services right now.
One of the things that's currently a future agenda item, and I'm not quite sure when it's going to come back to us, but the collecting our wastewater, all of our wastewater charges on the property tax bill.
Yeah.
And submitting, we'd have to get ahead of the curve one year and have funds in the bank to make up the difference. But from that point on, our customer service department would look totally differently and be focusing on totally different things and be able to focus on different things if we took that off their plate. That doesn't need to be there. There's already statute, state law in effect that we can do that. And how it would affect people in the county, I don't think they realize yet until they hear hear about it.
I have a question. Cindy, Murphy's bills on a monthly basis, and I know that you were always advocating that or mentioning that in finance committee of what would
They
make
bill
it
monthly.
easier.
They bill monthly. I think the easier part was trying to get most people on email billing, which they probably have 3/4 on email billing. That takes a lot of staff time. And even in the auto pay system that we have, it's automatically put in the bank and we do have to.
Yeah, but
enter
that's the one
charges.
you have to pay how much to do an auto pay as a service charge?
It was 35 cents.
Uh-huh.
How come so much?
Really? You don't want to push me over
Okay.
that conversation.
Okay, are we done with this?
Prison stamp, put it that.
Okay. Okay, so this, whoop, I got excited. So this is the beginning of or kind of a graphic to help folks understand that we're not just contemplating a CIP program and factoring that in. A large part of what we're contemplating here is the drastic increase in operating costs that we're beginning to see. And what you see by this graphic, this is our rate increase over the last 5 years in the blue and the consumer price index in red. And the idea behind this display is that, we were within striking distance in the first couple years, and then 2020 happened. And there is absolutely nobody on this planet that could have forecasted a global pandemic followed by supply chain issues, a war in Eastern Europe that complicated those supply chain issues even more. And so what you see is that's driving costs. Now, how that affects us as a district is just like it affects our customers at home, in the sense of we're paying more for fuel, we're paying more for tires, we're paying more for chemicals. To give you an idea, our power bill between last year's budget and this year's budget increased over $1 million. Our chemical bill increased over $183,000.
When you bring up the power bill, so is that a 30% increase?
No, it doubled.
Doubled.
50% increase?
No, it doubled.
100%.
It's 100% increase. And it's going up 10% again in July.
And is that all based on our electrical purchasing, or was it conditions that?
No, it's the CPPA rate increases. So we were paying at the end of 2020, I guess, the end of 2021, the beginning, end of fiscal year 21-22 was paying like 9.9 cents a kilowatt hour. We're now at 20 and it's about to go up another 10%.
Well, when we talk to somebody about, because nobody that's going to attend these meetings, or maybe one person will have actually been here before, but they don't know what a $1 million increase means to us. If we, I think we should say it. Let's say that, we paid $1 million this year. We paid $2 million.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Okay, excuse me, we didn't even talk about sewer. Because are we just gonna leave sewer rates the way they are?
No, this is both. But this is
Okay,
water
well,
and
you know.
sewer. Yeah, that's the water rate increase. The sewer was different. That's a good point. We could point
Yeah.
that out. And then I think the other thing here too is just that's one indicator of the condition that the economy was in. But as we just talked about with electricity, some of our costs went up
Yeah.
way more than what.
But then another thing that you want to point out is the fact that we get our power through CPPA. And those rates are still lower than what PG&E charges.
It would be interesting to have
Yeah.
that comparison
Uh-huh.
as to, the price that we would be paying, PG&E.
Yeah, PG&E, so their commercial rate that we would probably be paying if we didn't have CPPA is like closer to 35 cents now. So it's still,
I'd like
still
to have
getting
that
a significant.
I'd like to have that number.
Sure.
And
Just-
not that number, but maybe the million, what it would cost, what it would actually cost us.
That's what I mean.
And
As a,
yeah,
as a
not-
PG customer versus a
Yeah, not a-
CCPA customer.
Not a kilowatt hour number, but what we were paying, what we are paying, and what we would be paying if we had PG&E.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, and lastly, or the last slide, not, it won't be the last slide, but this is meant to be a comparison to illustrate that when we're talking about base rates and increases, it's not the water. The liquid itself is probably the most inexpensive thing that we have. It's also the most important, but where we incur the majority of our costs, and now you can kind of see the weave through when we start talking about 39.55 customers per mile, how many miles of pipe in the ground. It's that infrastructure that is what is important to provide safe, reliable water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so meant to just be a conversation starter around that conversation. Some of the feedback that I've heard from the community always seems to center around the water. Well, the water is not, we don't just sell water. We are water purveyors. We make sure that it gets to their house and that it's safe to use when it gets there. And I think that is one of our core points to express to people is it's not, anybody can go buy that gallon of water, right? You're going to pay a lot of money for it comparatively to the water we offer you, but we treat it, we clean it, we ship it, and we make sure that it's available to you whenever you want it. I don't think anybody ever.
In multiple rooms of your home.
Yeah, that's right. And that's really important to think about because nobody got up this morning and even had a thought about not taking a shower or the inability to take a shower.
I don't know, my water here has been deciding to go off and on. So. John, to arrive at how you got to this cost for the gallon of water, did you do just like that 13.8 billion and divide it appropriately by gallons? Okay.
I don't think the graphics though, 16 ounce.
Well, there's. Oh, yeah, that's.
16 ounces is a pint.
No, I
Just
just
put it
put
back last time.
it's 0.16, and then the gallon is 0.0019.
That's our.
Oh, I bet you.
Well, whose cost is, who's selling water for?
16 cents. That's right. That's my error. I apologize. So. All right.
I've always, the one thing that I've always, people don't understand the volume of water. And I've, over in Elk Grove, on Elk Grove Boulevard, there's a little water place there. And they've got, 750 gallon tank sitting out front with the display that, this costs you $2.15 full. And I've always, because it's hard for people to understand
Oh,
the
that's
volume,
interesting.
the cost.
That's their tier, their first tier.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and just a personal insight, one of the things that I've learned when you've been in the water business as many days as I have been.
That
was-
wears on you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You had hair when you got here.
Yeah, right? I don't know what happened. One of the things that I think is a critical piece in that is when you listen to the news, especially with the flooding, or when they're talking about releases from whichever lake someone thinks is either overstocked or understocked, they talk about it in CFS, cubic feet per second. And that the understanding that that's what 4.8 gallons or in that CFS. And to translate that into a figure that is more consumable to people.
Yeah,
Because nobody goes, I'm gonna take a shower in under 2 CFS this morning.
yeah, we had talked about making a conversion easier, and what happened?
Well,
There's different ways to display that. Yeah, we can include that.
in regards to this particular slide, I mean, I can't tell. I mean, is that what, if you go to Marvell and fill up a water tank, is that what it costs? I don't know where you're buying this water, and that's what I'd like to do is have a graphic, because I think everybody knows what a bottle of water is. People buy it, they know how much a bottle of water costs, but I'd like to see what our water costs. And I'd like to see again, something that everybody, what's the price for a 2,000 gallon poly tank? How much does it cost? If you fill that up with CCWD water at our current rates, how much is it? How much?
Or just another, the middle one should be 99 cents or a buck.
Yeah.
Well, but where? But not.
Right, anywhere.
You don't,
7-Eleven.
right, okay, so
Parkville.
No, they're $1.80.
I just think
Those are
display.
The fourth one should be a 40-gallon tank that equals one of those other numbers, or 50-gallon tank.
That's a good.
CCWD.
Same amount of water, or
CCWD.
same price for how much
Yeah.
water you get.
$1.28. Well, how much water can you get from CCWD
For
to cost you
$1.28.
$1.28?
You can get a lot.
Or, I mean, that's a gallon for $1.28. At the same store, it's either 99 or $1.39 for 16. I mean, you can go buy, which is stupid, which is you can buy a case of water for $3.99 almost anywhere, any grocery store.
I get where you're going with that. I would like to see the
The first two say the same thing, I think.
A better connection to what we do.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what it costs for our.
Yeah, no, when you say that, I thought about my poly tank at home.
Well, how many gallons?
Yeah.
How many gallons can you get from CCWD to equal 100? How many gallons for $1.28? Grocery store is $1.28. CCWD, you get 40 or 50 gallons for
I mean,
$1.
I wouldn't even mind having get, how much does it cost to fill up your Doughboy pool with CCWD water? $6. I bet that's pretty damn close. And people, I can't tell you how many people say, "Oh man, I'm worried about filling up my pool." I go, "Don't worry about it. You're not even gonna notice that."
That was actually one of the feedback was that I'd received, was that somebody was taking their laundry to the laundromat to launder it,
To save water.
to save water. And the first thought that I had was, you're paying way too much for your water then. Okay, that's great feedback.
That's kind of a question.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
using this picture up there, the 0.0019, if on our website, a customer can see how many gallons they use that month, right? So could they take that number of gallons and multiply it by that, and that'll come out to what they're paying? I would hope so,
No,
with the exception of, the way how the
Yeah.
tiers change, but could they get somewhat close? Yeah, I mean, you do have the CIP.
They are
supplement.
Do the
they are paying-
backwards math and ensure that it works.
but they are paying for
At least
infrastructure.
close enough.
Yeah,
But yeah, somehow you have to back out certain
But that
things at
number
that
is-
rate.
That number is just
Everything.
it's divided.
Inclusive.
I'm assuming we did our average use divided by our rate and came up with that 0.0019.
Oh, okay.
If I
I
could,
would just make sure it would
That
more to
should be-
match,
should be,
because
yes.
if not,
Yeah.
somebody will say something.
could I make a
I
statement?
mean, I,
Just settle down.
So then,
Yeah.
well, John has acknowledged that 16 cents for a 16-ounce bottle might be a little inexpensive, but if it was a legitimate number, And I think that I buy those cases at the lumber company and it's about 20 cents a bottle, for 24 bottles. But anyway, assuming that 16 cents is right, you could buy 84 bottles.
The 16 cent isn't right.
Well, but assuming that it was, but I'm just following for a second. Okay. If you do the calculation here, you could buy 84 16-ounce bottles for 16 cents.
Yeah, and that's the story we gotta tell.
I like that.
I mean, people do not understand the price of our water. They do not understand, they don't know how much water to use. They don't see it by volume. And that's why I think it's important that we put some big volume out there so they can kind of understand the quantity of the water that we're treating and delivering to their house.
And the purity.
The what?
Purity.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's what that would.
Quality.
That's why you like bottled water.
I'll bet you anything that if you test that bottled water, you'll find out that we can meet all those standards, if not surpass them.
Yeah.
That's your new brand.
It's quality and quantity.
Do we get any complaints about how our water tastes?
Rarely.
This untreated.
It depends.
Well, I gotta tell you that.
And there are times
CCWD
when
water's
if
awful.
if we are flushing or if a hydrant gets lit up, we'll have
May I-
manganese get
may I
spread up
say
in the water supply, or if we have to shift to a different water supply. Sometimes, yeah, it'll happen, but for the most part, we have really good water.
I take a walk, Metamount Center. And they have one of those water machines. And every time I see someone filling up, I always ask them, why, what's the matter with CCWD water? And it tastes, they say, or,
Those folks, they must live in Blue Lake Springs. That's not.
But we
Well,
got
That's
some,
water too.
to a certain,
Gallons of water out of this machine.
And sometimes it's just personal preference, something.
well, now that we got the dead squirrels out of our water tank, it tastes a lot better up on Miko.
Well, the water is still left here, Michael, in that container. I just can't stand it. And so I did bring my water. with
Well, what
us,
about
and I've never
the
even complained.
there's some
But
maggots.
this is not CCWD water.
I know.
And not to point fingers at anybody else.
But there are complaints with the manganese.
It happens occasionally, yeah, it's,
And in some places, it seems to be in Valley Springs, Rancho somewhere, there's gonna be more occurrence there than in other places. Something's going on with somewhere.
well, it's,
Murphy.
go ahead, Damon can explain it better than anybody.
And it's not bad. Damon
Damon's gonna tell.
he gave a great explanation at the town hall in Valley
The
Springs.
water guru, let's go.
It's naturally occurring in source water, so which is unique to both Copper and Valley Springs, that we have surface water that has manganese content in it. So what happens is it's very difficult to filter out through the filtration process. That's why we use ozone as an oxidant. We work to try to enhance our ability to remove it. Invariably, though, some of it slips through the system and then it likes to come out of solution. So as it sits in the water main, the water sits there statically in the main, the manganese particles find each other and create larger particles and fall to the bottom of the water main. So then when there's a fire hydrant flush or an actual fire or a water main break, all that manganese gets stirred up and back into the solution and you end up with this reddish brown water. And
Which,
so-
by the way, manganese, you couldn't live without it. It's
Right.
good for you. Your body needs it, in limit, in reasonable amounts. So it's not a toxin. It's just, it's really the discoloration that I think.
Yeah.
It's an aesthetic problem.
It's an aesthetic.
Tell them it's like-
Exactly.
But it is a supplement people actually buy and take
Right.
as well.
That's something we offered.
That's magnesium.
We offer it for free. Value.
Thank you, David.
So throughout this process, we've developed some core messages. And obviously we want to make sure that those cores resonate with you guys. And that includes safe and reliable. Those things demand The demands for safety and reliability drive the need to maintain and improve our conveyance and collection systems. That the water conveyance and collection technology is rapidly evolving, and investing in technology benefits the customer. And I think we've demonstrated that over the years, how improving our infrastructure makes it more safe and reliable. The increased regulatory demands drive increased efficiency and conservation that requires modern technologically advanced conveyance and collection systems. You know, the old redwood tanks that seep gallons of water at a time just simply aren't acceptable anymore. Not only in the future, I would imagine that if they aren't already, they will be, you know, you're not going to be allowed to. Yeah. I think we're done. Almost. We're getting there. But what's the next thing? Is it, you know, that we're not going to be able to use iron, or we're going to have to go to plat, you know, their technology is every.
Use diesel, that's the next.
Yeah. Yes.
Or gasoline.
That to help folks understand the extraordinary global and national economic conditions that have sharply increased our operating costs, as well as you know, an impact on our capital improvement projects. You know, what we could have got done for, say, $1 million 5 years ago might cost us $2.5 or $3 million now. And lastly, and I think Director Davidson spoke well to this, you know, we don't simply sell water, because anybody can go to Costco and buy cases of water at 20 cents a bottle. We make sure that it's at their home, at their beck and call, whenever they want it. And the expectation is that happens, whether it's Christmas Eve or Wednesday the 24th. And that means that we have to continue to invest in our infrastructure and our maintenance programs to make sure that we can get the water there when they need it. And so those are the core messages that we're trying to encompass, and hopefully those core messages resonate with you guys.
Obviously, these meetings can't last, 5 hours, but do we ever track our emergent, or the time of how many man hours after 8 o'clock at night?
After regular business hours. Anytime after regular business hours, we're gonna start paying absorbent costs, even if it's.
Well,
Yeah.
We track overtime.
Reliability and the, it's, again, people don't think about, our guys being out there all night long. But how many man hours do we have that are after midnight or 9 o'clock?
Yeah, we do track it, so we could actually push out kind of a percentage, or, here's the extra.
That.
Yeah, here's the extra effort associated with O&M for your water system or your sewer system.
Yeah, weekends or evenings, it'd be interesting to have that
It's
graph.
It's eye-opening.
Yeah.
I'm sure I do for sure, yeah.
Well, and the other thing to that end is, if you've ever taken your dog to the emergency vet, or had to have an emergency roof repair, or had to pay extra to get a mechanic to work on your car because it's broke down on Saturday, without continuing to modernize and maintain our systems, we're going to be at the mercy of those emergency calls.
That's a good comment right there.
That if we don't continue to look forward in our CIP program, the system will schedule it for us.
Yes.
And that's being at the mercy of an emergency contractor or an emergency contract. From my former life, you're going to pay more.
There's one other
you know-
point that I'd like to, go ahead.
Okay, at one time when we finished Reach 1 and 3A, we used to talk about the fact that improved not having to pay those extra charges.
Yeah, we could probably update some numbers on the amount of times we used to go out and fix Techite and Reach 1 and Reach 3 and.
Oh,
and that
absolutely,
has changed
yeah.
since those projects were completed.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that in a while.
And even on that subject, even on the Valley Springs, work, the weekend crew that we had doing all those fixes, you know, how has that changed our lives?
Yeah, it's all.
What I wanted to bring up is another thing that at an Aqua conference, well, several years ago, there was on rate studies and how to do rate studies and districts that were in the process of doing rate studies and possibly increases, was a slide on comparison of other bills that people have. And at that time, it was your cable bill, your phone bill, you know, what are you paying for other services that aren't nearly as necessary as water and wastewater? That are part of everyday life, maybe, and those were two that I set: telephone and cable or satellite. But I don't know if we actually have
Netflix.
on the Aqua website. There was actually a toolbox for members to use in explaining rates and why they go up. And if we haven't been there yet and putting this together, that's something we should definitely take a look at.
Yep. We have, and I think too, you know, not to gloss over, because we did mention that the video will be in there, but that's where I think we'll really highlight capital improvement projects that have been completed in recent years, and then upcoming projects that are critical, that are in the pipeline over the next 5 years. Because, you know, I think we really need to emphasize infrastructure as is tied to, as John mentioned, that, you know, the number one priority of safety and reliability.
And I've said it before, Damon does a great job with photographs of failed, unpainted facilities, broken pipes that have been drug out of the ground already sitting around. Those tell a story. I mean, how bad it gets, and what stuff that we're still working with and putting Band-Aids on a daily basis that need to be replaced.
So where we would go from here, and what I think this will evolve into as we move into the finance stuff, is, you know, combining these things and having this be, you know, the I don't know, introductory portion, for lack of a better word, of the overview and backstory, and then segue into the financial portion of it.
Okay.
But before we go there, is there anything that you, any of the board members would like to see, you know, emphasized or added to?
Can I say that one? Are we gonna break down the component of our capital improvement program, which was always I forget, untouchable? I mean, it was never supposed to go to admin. How much money since we adopted capital improvement component, how much money have we collected, and then how much infrastructure have we completed with that? And what the number I want, if it's $40 million, I want us to say we collected $40 million, but we built $55 million worth of infrastructure.
I think it'll be even more than that. And just in terms of, you know, what we've collected, yeah, I think the amount that we've actually implemented.
But I think
significant.
I just honestly kind of think we need to kind of open with that. It's like, look, hey, we made you this promise, you know, 7 years ago, and this is what we did. You know, we want you to know that we kept our word. We put all that money into infrastructure, and then on top of that, we leveraged it with another $15 million in grant funds. I'd like to start.
It was 10 or 11 years ago now.
Yeah.
And that is a good.
Very good point.
Yeah, great point. And maybe even tell a little story about how that was created, how the CIP, the R&R funds was created, and then how much money went into it. That would be good history.
Scott, I would suggest to you that your suggestion about pointing out to people how much other things like their cable vision and stuff cost in comparison to us, that in my mind, that might create a situation where we're justifying raising our prices just because other people charge more. And we can't let anybody think that for a minute. I think that this 218 process, the most meaningful thing about it to me is that we're mandated, state law, we can't charge more than it costs us to do
To
our
serve.
job. And we absolutely cannot charge less than it costs us to do our job. That's the thing that I think
Yeah.
is vitally important to communicate. What happens if we charge less than it costs us? Then we have the failures that John's talking about. We have, how many districts have gone into insolvency because they couldn't pay their bills? I don't, that's not something that we should wave a flag over, but I mean, that should be understood that we're running this like a business, but everybody in the county is the owner of the business. We're here directing traffic, but
Well, and one of the unique features of a special district versus maybe a private entity providing water, you know, that private entity has a profit margin. And that profit margin can often serve as a buffer to
Right.
absorb costs like an increase in diesel fuel, why we still use it, and things like that. And we simply don't have that. We don't have. That's one of the reasons that this process is so important, is because we have to break out a crystal ball, which nobody really has, right? And say, you know, I think this is what it's going to take to get by for the next 5 years. And that's difficult. It's difficult to do on a good day, and hazardous on a bad day, right? So, but we don't have that buffer room that a private entity has to say, well, we can take 1 or 2% less profit this year and maybe, you know, not give a big bonus to the big boss. We simply don't have a profit margin.
But I think Director Thomas, your point is an important one, because I think tools like comparing to other utilities or even comparing to other water districts can be useful to put this into context. But the whole message here has to be grounded in, we're just doing this to generate the revenue that is required in order for us to continue to provide reliable service. That's why this revenue is needed. It's not because of those other things. That's just context. I think there's a way to use those tools, and as long as it's properly framed. But you certainly wouldn't want to create the impression that, you know, oh, we're just seeing how far we can push prices because these other utilities are pushing prices. That
That makes
not what's good.
sense. That, yeah.
Right.
want to do that.
Okay, anything further, John? No, sir, barring any questions or other feedback. I greatly appreciate. I've scribbled.
Took a lot of notes.
I think I've scribbled on everything I have here in front of me. You know, that's my mission as your external affairs manager, is to make sure that we're bringing forth the message that you guys see as our leaders.
Go ahead.
No, I want to know, have we kind of done an overview of our outreach, or are we still far away from that? As far as establishing a schedule or anything?
We have a schedule for community workshops that we'll do. We have a schedule for the whole rate process that takes us through to September. Yes, we have a schedule.
We have a county tour date booked.
But we are, you know, we've already, I mean, pretty much every public meeting we have these days, we're talking about this, and we're trying to get the word out. We're reminding people of it every chance we get and inviting them to these meetings.
Okay.
Rebecca, do we have many public members online?
So from my standpoint, kind of as aside from the rate study itself, which we've been focusing a lot on, I'm also working on just creating a larger footprint, both digitally through social media and through just being in the community and getting the word out about what we do and how we do it. And that's going to continue to expand. I'm drinking a little from the fire hose with what's in front of us right now. But one of the things that I'm trying to do is begin that educational process. Last Wednesday, you know, I had a Water Fact Wednesday that went out We had training here with PG&E yesterday. We celebrated that. And just getting what we do and how we provide safe and reliable water out further into the community is what I'm doing in between this.
What my concern will be is that I know we've all thrown a bunch of, different ideas at you. We may have to consolidate this. We
Yeah.
cannot have 2.5 hour
Right.
public meeting.
No, it'll be short.
My tolerance level is about 45 minutes. So we may have to, pick and choose some of these things that we think are important and let the public, I'd like to have them in our back pocket if the public brings them up. But we may have to consolidate some of this stuff but be prepared to answer these other questions,
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have it down and
I agree. I think a big part of what we need to be doing is shut up and listen. And hearing from our community members and our customers during these shops.
But I want to have the answers. I mean, the questions aren't going to be any different than they were 7 years ago.
Right.
They're going to be the same questions.
Why does it cost so much?
okay, so I think we'll keep working on this, and with that, I think I'll turn it over to Jeff, and we can roll into the updated discussion of the 5-year financial plan. But thank you, John.
Yep, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Take it away, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. Jeff Meyer, Director of Admin Services. It's a pleasure to be with you today to talk about one of our favorite topics, numbers. I can see Jeff getting up and walking away as I start talking, which is not surprising. Sorry, Jeff. Today's discussion is kind of a carryover of what we talked about on May 3rd, which was Habib's introduction of the water and sewer financial plans. We listened closely to your board last time around, as far as especially year one projected increases, as far as what the financial plan said. So we went back to the drawing board, went over all the numbers. I worked closely with both Habib and Lauren at IB Consulting, and also Eric Scriven. And there wasn't a whole lot we could do because we had come through it before we provided the information to Habib, but we came up with 2 items that has had an effect on year one cost increases and a little bit beyond. And one of those is, if you remember from previous loans, we created a rate stabilization fund. And in looking at that, there's about $520,000 on the water rate stabilization fund. We're looking at that to be able to use in year one to help pay down some of the debt that we have, which would help offset our debt service coverage ratio. Yes, we have to pay it back in future years, but it does help lower that first year water increase. And I'm talking specifically about water at this particular point. We also revisited the property tax projections for next year. We were able to incorporate the county's projections into next year, and that helped us gain a little bit more money as well. So Habib is going to go over and talk about the updated financial plans, and then kind of give a peek into what our next steps are as far as cost of service and rate structures. But the whole key here is to review our changes to the financial plan and to get your board's buy-in. And if we have direction to move forward, then we can take the next steps. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Habib.
Hello.
Habib?
Yeah, I'm just unmuting my mic. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon once again. As everyone's been mentioning, this is just an update to what we presented at the last board meeting. So I'm gonna share my screen and probably go through these initial slides a little bit. Try not to go too quick, but this is gonna be information that we already went through. So 1 second to share. All right, so we're gonna go through the financial plan. And as I mentioned before, the last meeting, we go through a lot of detailed items when it's going through with staff and understanding the district's budget and water and wastewater, as well as your structure as well of how your rates are set up, if they have specific components to fund certain items, your debt, and coverage ratios. All that goes through our analysis and our discussions. These are some of the key factors that I wanted to point out, besides that we go through with staff. Inflation, we're keeping pretty high for this next year, 5.6%, 7.2% for capital. Those are based on the most recent annual change for CPI in the San Francisco area, and then for capital in the engineer's news record of this last year. And then after that year, we go back to the 5-year average of those two indices. We're not assuming any growth. We don't want to rely on growth coming in to meet your revenue needs. So if growth does come in, then there is potential that if there's enough growth, you may not need to go up to the proposed rates that we will be presenting to you in about a month. And then utility demands is just showing just the amount of sales in your for your water enterprise and the number of EDUs connected to your wastewater system. Capital spending is one of your biggest cost drivers. It is typically the biggest cost driver for most utilities. We're definitely funding depreciation and then some. On average, water is 11 million per year, wastewater is 7 million per year. And we have a full detailed capital plan related to working with this of quite a few iterations. And then we are proposing debt in both enterprises, 16.5 million water and 6 million wastewater. That debt is going to be used to fund those. In the short term, you have a lot of capital projects, so it's going to be used to fund that, while rates increase to then slowly transition to cover your capital spending in the outer years. And then lastly, we modeled your reserve policies and incorporate that into both the water and wastewater models. So with the water enterprise, this is showing you where your current position is right now. Your operating position, this is just O&M expenses, no capital. Your revenue right now is not exceeding your operating expense. And you are generating a deficit that then is being absorbed by your reserves. And then with the capital plan, this isn't the full extent of your capital needs, but this is really the critical projects that must be done with this in this next 5 years. There's a few other items that need to be completed, but they're not as crucial as what is shown today. And that's something that Mike touched on last time as well. And you do have existing proceeds from a current loan that you have, and that is funding majority of the 24 and 25 projects. And then here's your any reserve balances. This red trend line is your minimum requirement. The black dash line is your target. So because that deficit is going to hit your reserve, so your reserve is absorbing that. But then over time, with that deficit, as well as the level of capital spending that you have to do, it's not sustainable with your current rates where they are today. So the revenue adjustments will be needed. And then here's a summary of our review of your existing financials. We want to first eliminate the operating deficit. Reserves are below your minimum requirements. I'm showing what those reserve requirements are. Operating is 90 days of O&M. Capital reserve is your annual depreciation amount, which is just your depreciation alone is less than what your capital spending is. And then rate stabilization is 10% of operating revenues. So in total, all these combined is 11.1 million for fiscal year 2024. So this is what I showed back on May 3rd, which was going to be 25% adjustments with 16% in the following years. We were going to generate positive net income, that then this positive income, which is represented in the gray bars, then goes towards your capital spending and replenishing your reserves. We're going to fully fund the capital plan that was provided to us. And even though it's not all the capital needs, it's still $55 million over the next 5 years. I indicate we're going to issue debt, or we're proposing that you should issue debt, 6.5 million. That will allow rates to slowly get phased in and increase over time. So then eventually you'll be able to fund your capital needs in these outer years with just rate revenue that comes in on an annual basis and reserves. And then with this, then your reserves are replenished. This big spike here in 25 is just the 16.5 million coming into your capital reserve to fund your capital projects. And then you draw it down pretty quickly. And then the revenue adjustments in these later years maintains your reserve balance to be over your minimum requirements. So that was what was presented on May 3rd. So now we did some adjustments, and it was discussed that the goal was to bring down that first year's revenue increase. So we did that, but we do have to slightly uptick the second year to 18%. You still end with the same results of, meeting all your needs. One other thing that was adjusted was we had updated information from the county of the amount of property tax that's coming in and their projections for next year. That projection increased by $500,000. So incorporate that into our model, which then is providing some relief to be able to reduce that revenue adjustment. And then secondly, in our previous slide, we weren't meeting the coverage for 2024 related to your debt. So then the rate stabilization reserve has $520,000 in it, and that's going to be used to buy down the debt on the principal side in 2024. That then allows you to meet your debt service coverage requirement. And in capital plan, that 55 million is being fully funded. And now this shows you the additional debt that we're proposing. And oh, one other thing, sorry, let me go back. And there was some rescheduling as well in the capital plan where it didn't have the front years so heavily loaded. It's been more smoothed out over the 5 years, and that also is helping us reduce that first year adjustment. Any reserve balances is relatively the same, and then the proceeds we're using over multiple years. And that's the primary update that we wanted to present today. I can also still, because this is a public meeting, just go over what we presented last time with wastewater, if that's okay.
This might be a good time to pause for a minute, Habib, though, and just talk about, because I think we glossed over debt service coverage ratio quickly here. I know we talked about it in the last meeting as well. But I think, you know, in general, I think a lot of this is driven by our capital infrastructure needs, and we've talked a lot about that as well. But it's also more so than I had previously suspected. It's operating costs and that the operating deficit itself that does, you know, the slides speak for themselves on those numbers, and then our ability to meet our obligations in the infrastructure loans that we've taken out. And that debt service coverage ratio is just a critical piece to the district's financial health over time. And so that's why it's so hard. Even when we moved capital improvement projects around, it didn't move the numbers very much, because we still have to meet those debt service coverage obligations. So I just want to underscore that point as something that is really critical to the district's financial security, and one of the things that we're really prioritizing here.
And with that, is there any questions from the board in regards to the water enterprise? And then just so you know, next month or like in July, we're going to come back with proposed rates related to this financial plan.
I have one question here. I mean, I've been flipping through the pages that were handed out here, trying to keep up with you, Habib, and I think that you have more plates than we have. So it's kind of confusing when you're talking about something that's on the screen that I can't find in my handout. If we, and for future meetings, if we could make sure that we have the same thing that you're putting on the screen.
It was the graphs. The graphs were changing.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's not
Yeah.
Habib's fault. That's my fault. Sorry. about
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh.
kept, but I missed.
Yeah, last time we provided a printed version of this where it just puts every single chart on a separate page. But the PowerPoint itself, it's animated, so it comes in as I click.
Okay, well, that explains why I was confused, I guess. But bottom line, Michael talked a little bit, and you've been talking a lot about the first year rate proposal. Where do I
Yes.
see that? Or what page do I see what increase you're proposing?
25% to 21%.
It went
20
from 25 to 21, and just to clarify, that's not a rate proposal yet. That's the revenue shortfall that we're anticipating at this point. And so the revenue increase we would need in order to meet our obligations, but it doesn't translate
Okay.
directly to rates yet. That'll be the next step.
Yeah. And we're already getting done with the rates, but the rate, like the average customer, because it depends on what meter size you have, how much water you use. But based on the average usage, the impact is going to be around 24% on a customer's bi-monthly bill.
One of the things, Michael, that I'm gonna want to see a little bit more info, maybe I don't have to. The CIP is what the CIP is. And so I'm looking towards the operating cost to find out if there's anything that can be trimmed out of there. So I see it barely moving, so it's probably based on, what we talked about, electric and stuff like that. But if there's anything like, okay, you have scheduled in there for IT to everybody update laptops or something, I'd like to know about that. I mean, it looks pretty, like I said, level. It doesn't seem like it's increasing over the 5 years much, but so we'll do that in the finance.
We'll do that in finance committee and budget development. And as we
Okay.
do, that's more of the budget development process where we get into the weeds of that but happy to answer all
Yeah.
those questions.
And like I said, the CIP is what the CIP is. And so I'm trying to look for any areas that we could potentially, pull back on and operating,
Yeah.
so where can we, if at all, right?
It's
And-
tough and, because a lot of our operating expenses are either fixed or not. They're not up to us. We have to pay the power bill. We have to buy the chemicals.
Exactly.
And so there's actually not a lot in the budget that's left to just discretionary spending. And then on that front, it's prioritization and making sure that we're just being as frugal but efficient, but also meeting our needs as possible.
Well, those are
that's the
something that
process.
I'd like to kind of just a little bit, so I know when I have to talk to the ratepayers that we looked at that and we dialed it in the best we can.
Yeah, and actually, for the public that's here, if you want to know, if you want to dive deeper into the budget development discussion, finance committee next week,
Where need to
next
go.
Tuesday, we'll be going in detail the proposed budget for next fiscal year.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then at the next board meeting as well.
Well, one of the things you're just talking about, Cindy, a good comparison is to go back to John Osborne's slide showing when you're talking about the operating expenses. This is what operating expenses, would look like. The 5-year consumer price index jumping up between 20 and 22, yet our operating expenses remain pretty constant through that whole period.
Operating revenue did. Expenses have gone through the roof and our revenue hasn't changed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Our operating expenses
here aren't going up nearly, well.
Yeah, and I
That's right.
stated that comment. It doesn't seem like they're, the operating cost seems to be, looking at these right here, they're
Oh.
not moving very much, and I think that's great. But I just want to make sure I want to understand everything in there. That's all.
Yeah.
That'll
be in the budget.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday, 1:00.
I'm such a smart. Oh, I can't even say it. No.
No, I think it's great.
I'm ready to listen to it too.
Oh, yeah, put your crown back on, then I won't say anything.
We're gonna dive into
I'm
the
being
weeds. of it.
supportive.
Thank
We're trying to. I'm being a smart ass.
We're talking about that a lot.
Okay, go ahead. I'll be.
Sure.
He was asking
So-
for other comment.
I could go into the wastewater and go through that same process. So with wastewater with your current rates, which is represented by the black trend line, as there's no increased slope, so no increases. This does cover your expenses, your operating position. You do have an income to go to capital spending and your reserves. Your capital spending is still, a decent amount in the early years, and then you also are splitting that loan between water and wastewater, which is the light violet. And then the dark purple is what needs to come from rates or reserves to cover your capital spending. And then any reserve balances, you are below your minimum. And then because of the level of capital spending, you would then deplete your reserves. So we need to make sure you have enough funds to cover your capital spending needs. The reserves are below the minimum, which your minimum for 2024 is 4.8 million. And as mentioned, at existing rates, it's not sustainable to fund your capital plan, and they would have to be deferred. The proposed wastewater, these are 14% revenue adjustments, and the very last year is a 3%. The capital spending is almost 36 million over the next 5 years. That's still a pretty big number, even though it's less than water. And then the debt amount for wastewater proposed is $6 million. And on wastewater, the debt coverage isn't a primary driver in any way. It just wastewater doesn't have as much debt in relation to the total revenue compared to water. So it's really a function of just covering your capital spending needs and maintaining healthy reserves, so that we have more proceeds to cover that additional capital spend in 25 and 26. And then you then achieve meeting your minimum reserve requirements for wastewater over each of the years from 2025 through 2028. And then refresh.
Excuse me, can you
Yes.
explain PAYGO funding?
Sure, PAYGO's pay-as-you-go funding, which is basically not using debt and having enough funding coming in from your rates on an annual basis, plus what's available in your reserves to fund your capital needs with cash on hand, while at the same time maintaining your reserve requirements, keeping your reserve requirements intact.
Okay. Habib, we're looking at the 35.8 million to fully fund. Is this graph and the rate including any grants you have anticipated for that, or is it just debt and rates?
It's just debt and rates. You do have some grant funding for 24 that is being utilized, but there's no future grants that we have incorporated into the financial plan.
And, we are anticipating some potential grants on the wastewater side and the water side. So if we do get grants and yet we've put this increase in place and now grants are offsetting, is there any options to make adjustments to rates, or that's something we
Absolutely.
would just decide as we go along?
Yes, absolutely. We do quite a few annual updates for our clients, and they basically, these would then generate the notice rates, and your notice rates are the maximum amount that you're not able to go over unless you go through this process again. But you're always allowed to implement a rate that was lower than what we show on the notice, and you basically want to outperform what we are projecting. So
Right.
that's something that you could definitely do, and we assist our clients with that.
And that's absolutely something we will always strive for. I think the caveat I would add there, though, is we pulled a lot of really critical projects out of the CIP even before we arrived at where we are
So
now.
maybe put one of
So
those in.
if we're able to bring in any funding for CIP projects, it would, I think we'll have to see where we are
When
at
it
that point
comes
in
up,
time,
yeah.
but it may be a better, it may be smarter at that point to pivot to, funding another
Another
CIP project
project.
that wasn't included in this plan rather than not implement a rate increase.
And if that
As
did come
difficult
up,
as that
which
is.
hopefully it will, you would bring it to the board to say,
Oh, absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, because we were at that point, the last rate increase, we pulled back the rate increase.
Right. The board has done that in the past, not implemented a rate
Yeah.
increase.
Thank you.
You can go down, you just can't go up.
Gotcha. But I like your thought on that thing.
And I believe tomorrow we're have a meeting with staff to go through the cost of service analysis and rate design of both water and wastewater. And then that will lead us to what we're going to present to the board on July 12th. And then these are the milestone dates for implementation dates of the new rates, October 16th.
And we have our outreach program already kind of moving around through all this.
A lot of that will happen between those two meetings. Yeah.
Excuse me, we will, implementation date of proposed rates. If I remember correctly, we had those rates were retroactive last time. This time, we're not gonna,
We can't do retroactive. No,
because didn't we do that and then it was effective July 1st or something like that?
no, I mean, typically and we did this year too, we aimed for the start of the fiscal year.
Fiscal year,
We-
right.
Yeah, there's some other circumstances came into play. So at this point, we're not anticipating these rates to go into effect until October.
Okay, okay.
And I would say these revenue adjustments to identify like the 21% and the 14% takes into account the delay in the implementation. So that's already accounted for.
Director Adamant? Just for point of clarification, the reason we chose the 16th of the month is that's the beginning of a new billing cycle. So we always have any increases would be on the 16th of a month. Thus, we chose October 16th.
Okay, Habib, anything further? I see we're at the end of your PowerPoint. Is there anything further to add?
Well, actually, just on that last point, Jeff, so just to clarify, you're talking about the bills that will be due on October 16th.
No, we're
Is that
talking about the bills that start October 16th.
That start
Yes.
October 16th. So the customer will see it in the bills that go out after October 6th. Got it. Okay.
That is correct.
Got it.
Yes. No,
Water
Director,
will
this is
start
the-
costing more possibly on October 16th, but the customer won't get their bill for sometime after that.
Right.
2 months after that.
Correct.
Well, we have a plan. Let's see.
Jeff or Habib, anything further?
That is all, unless there's any other questions.
We're just looking for direction from the board that, as far as moving forward with this financial plan analysis.
Any questions from the board for these gentlemen?
Yeah, Jeff Meyer, I'm just curious about some of these other expenses that we are currently incurring and looking at the possibility of them increasing substantially. With number one thing that comes to mind is the NCPA or the FERC renewal could be multiple millions of dollars. How about fleet purchases because of the clean air fleet requirements that are coming down the pike. I mean, that's going to be equivalent to some multiple capital improvement projects. How should we be thinking about those expenses with this revenue increase proposal?
We are actually including vehicle purchases. It's part of our capital lease to own program. And we have some additional vehicles that are part of next year's budget. We're working very closely with Damon and Fleet to make sure we address those issues. In terms of the NCPA FERC relicensing, Michael and I have had some discussions, and he's much better versed at that than I am. If he'd like to jump in on that.
Yeah, so a couple on the fleet question first, though. It's a great question, and it's going to be difficult. We have not anticipated, we have not added any, significant increase in the cost of vehicles in this financial plan. We're basically kind of projecting forward what our current expenditures are with minimal increases or just inflationary increases, but we haven't we haven't added or increased revenue to account for, if, for example, those vehicles are going to be more expensive than the vehicles that we're buying right now. And that remains to be seen. It could be a challenge, not just, the availability of those vehicles that's a whole other story. But if we're forced to buy vehicles that are significantly more expensive than the ones that we've been buying, that's going to hit the budget, and it may decrease the number of vehicles that we can purchase on a regular basis, or we may have to revisit that in 2027 when that rule goes into effect for us. But it's going to be something that we're going to have to keep a close eye on, because we also don't have any money in here for charging stations. And so if we're going to have to implement, if we're going to have to install a bunch of charging stations and incur a bunch of additional costs for electric vehicles, not by our choice, but if we have to do that, those costs are either going to have to come from other sources, or we're going to have to revisit this, in 2027.
We're just gonna have to go back to when I first started, where we had ladders and picks and shovels.
Yeah.
And a couple of mules.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm glad you raised the point, because no, the answer is it's not, we did not anticipate, having to roll out that whole electric fleet, or at least not the cost of that electric fleet, electrification of the fleet. That's something we're going to have to wrestle with as that gets closer. Hopefully there will be, grant funds available for those kinds of things, or subsidies from the state available for those kinds of things.
Or just an off ramp.
Yeah. But we're just going to have to manage that as we move through the next few years, and then it could potentially be a big impact in the next
We have-
financial plan, though.
They're building 4 to 8 charging stations up behind the Meadowmont Shopping Center. So go up to Ebbets Pass and
And sit
recharge.
there for how long?
All right.
It's
Fantastic.
like, hey, the gal at the PDD gal at that, whatever, the breakout session or whatever, she basically,
Oh, yeah.
she basically said that, the power doesn't exist.
Right.
And,
Right, right.
and
Yeah.
she hopes that we'll be able to charge during the day.
How's that?
The grid infrastructure is not there. The power doesn't exist. So it's, obviously there are a lot of problems with that program, but the short answer to the very good question is no. If there are going to be substantial increases in our fleet costs because of that, we haven't factored that in here.
But I did hear you say, which I kind of liked, was almost the way I heard it was you're going to stay within your budget. Maybe you won't be able to buy these cars, but you'll have to buy these instead. Staying within your budget.
Yeah, I mean, that's
heard
the
that.
exercise we go through every year, is evaluating what's available. We're trying to, we've made a ton of progress in reducing the average age of our fleet over the last several years, which was critical. And we want to keep going in that direction, but only based on the resources that we have.
Without spending a great deal of time on it, I mean, do we have an idea of the value of our fleet?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, it would be kind of nice to have that number because, I mean, there's only a handful of heavy vehicles on the market today, but we can throw a value at those and just kind of give the public a snapshot of the enormity of what could happen.
How big of an impact that could be.
And then even, and then maybe just come up with a ballpark for, charging station at, 4 or 5 of our locations, so we have that idea.
Mhm.
And that's something one day, and not that far away, we'll have to throw that in our CIP.
No, it's coming upon us real quick. I think for fleet, it's 2024 and, right?
2027 for low population count.
But you can't, starting 2024, we can't purchase any vehicles outside
2027.
2027? Okay.
And then I think
Which still is not very far away,
No,
especially
no.
when we don't have any charging station.
Right.
So, and then to the other point, it doesn't impact rates. The cost of relicensing, we're projecting, we don't know. And there's a bill in Congress right now to modernize and reform the relicensing process, which we're tracking. But, our projections are probably $45 to $55 million. It's going to be an extremely expensive process, but it can't come out of water rates. And we can't fund that hydro relicensing process with water rates. The projects themselves have to pay for that process. Although I was just having a good conversation with Dave Egerton about the importance of that, especially the Norfolk project to the county and to this district in particular, and how while we may not be spending water rates on relicensing, if we're not a fully funded water district, it's hard to pick your head up and be able to have the ability to do the work that needs to get done to get through relicensing and make sure that we're maximizing the benefit of that project for in-county residents. If we don't have the resources that we need to fix leaks and keep the water service going and keep wastewater service going, which is our core function, our core priority. So it's not that we're funding it's not that we're funding relicensing with water rates, but if we're not a well-funded or fully funded water district, it's going to be hard for us to navigate a process as complicated and sophisticated.
There's no question that we're going to have to fund the relicensing through future revenues of the project.
Right.
And with our partner, whoever we choose to do that, is where a big part of that will come. But not on rates. It's not even part of this part of this discussion.
It's not, no, but it's not, it's a big part of the CCWD picture that I think we need to do a better job of articulating.
Well, we have to be solvent to make that
ratepayers and if that's the bottom line. If we're not solvent, how are we supposed to be able to navigate that process so that we're making sure we bring as much benefit to the district or to the county as possible? And that's something we've been talking about more lately. Water Resources has some really good ideas on how to tell that story and make that a better part of, I think increase the understanding within the county of how important those projects are for us.
No, and my point is that we're talking about the cost of service and doing a financial analysis of our operating expenses and what our future revenues are going to be, and we should keep that North Fork project is one of the biggest, most important things that we have, but it's not part of this discussion.
No, only to the sense that, we get revenue off of those projects currently, not as much as what we're anticipating or hoping for in the next license term, which is where the real, benefit will come from those projects. So yeah, it's factored into the financial plan because the revenue is there. So the projects are, and there are some costs there, but we're not paying for relicensing with water rates.
Okay. Mr. Meyer, you're looking good. Hope you're recovering successfully. Anything further?
Nothing at this point. Thank you, Mr. Director Radaman, and thank you, members of the board.
Good to see you,
Thanks,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, any public comment on 5A, which just went on for about an hour and a half? Go ahead. Come on up, Ralph.
Yes, they're bubble gum. Just about a couple of things, we did a discussion, and I just highlighted them here for me. Go through. The presentation of your drafts, keep it as it's built, bi-monthly. Can't put lipstick on a pig by showing it monthly. It just, when I think of the bill or whoever pays the bill in the house, they know it's a bi-monthly. So I would stick to that graph. John's comment, creating a larger CCWD footprint using social media, excellent point. His quote, shut up and listen to the constituents, excellent point. And then the last thing I have are the charging stations. You got 89 emergency generators, one charging station in each generator. You need to charge whatever, whoever goes there, inspects the pump station, the lift station, or whatever.
A gas powered generator for electric vehicles. I think that's brilliant. I'm not sure that's what CARB has in mind, but I think that's brilliant.
Well, what are they thinking? Yeah.
The charging station that everybody needs. There you go.
Good call.
That's all I have. It was a very good presentation, by everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Ralph.
Ralph. Appreciate the input.
Any further public comment on online, Becca? Okay, we're gonna take a short 5-minute break and then we'll get back to it.
Damon's short 5-minute presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready? Okay, we're back in session. And we're gonna go to reports. Damon, report on the April 2023 Operation and Engineering Department.
Good afternoon, President Ratterman, directors. I will be succinct with my presentation. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Very, very cool. Excuse me. So April is no different than any other month. The only difference in recent memory is that we did not have a massive spate of atmospheric river storms that we were also spending most of our time dealing with. It was just the usual service line replacements, water main breaks, pump replacements, and once again, through customer service out into operations, everybody's done a bang up job on all the work. And as you know, as is the norm, we like to start in the Jenny Lind water system service area, taking a look at water service line replacements. So this is about 25 feet on a body of service line replacement. So not only is our utility crew replacing service lines, but as it always has been, when our distribution crews have the opportunity, they can dive in and they'll replace a section of service lateral also. And as you all know, you'll see multiple service lines with multiple repair clamps. Some of those repair clamps are where the rounder is replaced on the service line. So it might appear that there were more leaks than there actually were, but oftentimes there are multiple repairs on a service line. This one's interesting because it was a service lateral coming off of a fire hydrant runner, and both of them failed. So you can see the larger pipe is the fire hydrant runner, and then what we call the shark bite connector on the polypropylene tube in the picture on the right is the newer line. And then in this image here on the left, you can see the condition of the old lateral coming off of the fire hydrant lateral, and then all the new and improved and repaired clamped 6-inch fire line and service line on the right. The crew has done a phenomenal job. This was a Friday afternoon. This is kind of how interlinked the topography is with the operation of our water systems. So the image on the right is a pressure reducing valve that had a failed small. It's basically a female nipple, so it's a threaded. The name's escaping me right now, but the piece on the PRV failed, and it allowed the pressure reducing valve to equalize pressure. So it pushes about 50 additional pounds down into the end of a cul-de-sac. And so what you end up with is a 2-inch main break, the image on the right, water percolating out of the ground. Happy Friday. And this is what the 2-inch, this is the bluebell pipe that you guys have heard about in the past. Failed in multiple locations. And then our staff dive in, cut the section out, identify the failed piece. This is, in this case, this brass nipple on the CRD, the controller of the pressure reducing valve in the vault, replace that so then they can now restore operational pressure to the service area.
Is the previous picture, the previous slide, is that looking down in before that? Yeah, that looking, the one on the right, is that looking down into a vault?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you would drive over basically like a 24-inch metal diamond plate lid.
Okay,
Clunk, clunk.
this is what's in.
Underneath it, yep, is what's, this is what's living there. And then in the image, you can see it looks like a 4-inch and maybe 1.25 inches. So 4-inch, or maybe that's a 2 and a 1 actually. So the PRV is of a greater size, and then there's a bypass. And so what happens is there's a low flow, high flow, and all of our PRVs have this. So you have PRV where it looks most likely a 2-inch to 1 or 2-inch to 3/4, up to 8-inch by 4-inch. So depending on the demand, those pressure reducing valves or sustaining valves, depending on the application, will operate.
Damon, what did it do to customers' appliances and stuff in that?
So unfortunately, it can blow them up. It can blow water heaters up. It could have a negative impact on your irrigation system. And we did have some calls, and And so Kelly Richards and I usually touch base very closely in the midst of these things. We just let her know that there's going to potentially be some issues associated with increase in pressure, dramatic, quick increase in pressure.
Are we responsible to
Yeah.
replace these people's stuff?
Uh-oh.
If it's our fault.
And that would be our fault here.
Right. So generally like a cause and effect. So if all of a sudden we're getting a call of water coming out of the ground and then we go find the PRV and, oh, there's a blown nipple. And then we're getting phone calls of, hey, what happened? Water shooting out of the ground in my yard. We can create the cause and effect right there and pretty generally say, hey, Michael, we would bring this information to Michael and say, here's a claim related to this pressure
Is
reducing
that
valve
with their
failure.
insurance by any chance?
No, not for this kind of a thing. It wouldn't.
Can you,
cover it. Although we have somebody on the executive committee now, so maybe we can.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Get this,
So
those claims funded in the future.
would it help, or could you have people put like the pressure reducing valves at their
We do.
connection? They
Yeah,
have
that's
them.
one thing we would look
Yeah,
into.
most
So if
of
this
the,
happened, put one on after the fact.
well, and they could have had one there prior to, and depending, sometimes those are what fail, which is great, because that's,
Okay, it's theirs.
a less expensive repair, right? Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of unique depending on the part of the distribution system that you're in. And then incidentally, we've talked about this before, but on the Ebbets Pass, we have 100+ pressure reducing or sustaining valves.
How do you pronounce this court?
Everybody that I work with says a booth.
A boo.
Director Davidson, I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, say it. Come on.
Some people just,
It sounds
just
like
bow
a-
out. Some people just bow out on this one. But we say a booth.
A booth.
Yeah. I thought this was a really unique picture. It's a service line repair, but you see some of the tools of the trade in the image on the right outside of the hole. So you've got, clamp, pipe cutters, pipe wrenches, all manner of tools to get the job done. So moving on, here's our classic service line replacement. So you can see multiple repair clamps. And, once again, there could be some rounders that were placed on the service line, but at the same time, there could be multiple repairs. And just the image on the right shows that we have a crew member literally in the bushes. So often service lines are traveling in all manner of directions. And so we're going to do everything we can to replace and install new. And here's the meter box in the image on the left. It looks like a manifold. So most likely there's a T there in the water. And meter box on one side and the service line going into a meter box on the other side.
No wonder there's a worldwide shortage of these saddle clamps. So,
We have them all.
yeah.
Yeah, we could-
Sorry, world.
yeah, so here's one that we encounter periodically. Corrosion due to dissimilar metals. So you see an 8-inch main with a tap saddle, a stainless steel tap saddle with a brass corporation stop. You can see the image on the right, the water kind of shooting out of the side to the right from the corporation stop. So all right, guys, this was on Main Street in Valley Springs, kind of near the feed store. And this is what the brass corp stop and nipple connection look like after that. You can just literally grab it and just take it out. It just falls apart in your hand. So
The dissimilar metals, even the one's brass and one's stainless, that they interact.
yes, yeah. So there's a dielectric fitting that we can install on the corporation stop that will put a little plastic gasket in between of everything if we have to, for some reason, make use of that, but of a stainless. But that's what the tap saddle looks like that we would use, is brass to brass, and then we coat those threads in new service lateral.
Interesting.
So we were talking about manganese earlier. Here's some of the work that was going on in Rancho was associated with fire flow testing. So we worked with the fire marshal in the Genuine water system to conduct flow tests. I want to say on 1700s. And so some of that work, was in some of the commercial areas. And so we did that work on the weekend when the commercial businesses, dental offices and whatnot were closed, because we anticipated some manganese, and the image on the right shows the discolored water that we have to flush after we do a fire flow test. So when we talked earlier, all this manganese comes out of solution, sits on the bottom of a water main, and then here we come along and flow test the hydrant to verify that it can actually flow 1,000 gallons a minute or 500 gallons a minute or whatever we estimate it to be able to do. And we end up putting all this manganese into solution, and then we have to flush it out of there because we can't just let it go on down the line to our customers. And so this was about I think it was about an hour and a half of flushing to clean up the water main. Incidentally, most of the flow testing that we've conducted, very minimal manganese. And talking to the treatment operators in Jenny Lind right now, the manganese is the lowest they've seen it in about 15 years. Obviously, there's going to be a correlation associated with all the runoff that we've had, all the water. Dilution is the solution oftentimes. So, but the fire flow testing information then goes to the fire marshal and informs the ISO and can potentially work to reduce folks' insurance ratings in their communities. Here's up on Ebbets Pass. So the image on the left, you can see the valve box for that hand wheel valve in the image on the right. And so then there's the larger brass nipple that was installed with a dresser coupling to repair that water line. Here's an 8-inch main on Darby Russell that was hit during a trenching operation for a PG&E subcontractor. This was, I believe, a Friday afternoon.
They didn't call,
Knock on wood, but
they didn't call before.
they did call before. Unfortunately, this line was not in the place that we all understood it to be, unfortunately. But our guys were so quick on the draw that they were in and out, got it repaired, did a phenomenal job, and everybody was back in action. You can see the image on the right, the trash pump pulling water out of the actual main. The main is left somewhat pressurized until our excavation can ensure that there's going to be no debris that goes back into that pipe. And that's how we're able to not issue boil water advisories. If our guys show up on site and the main is sucking debris in, then we have to issue a boil water advisory. So luckily here, we were able to kind of leave that somewhat in pushing water. As you can see, the trench has water in there until everybody's ready to go. And that's usually how we operate. And so then you can see the image on the right, flushing off the roadway. So we have a diffuser on some rollaway hose that's connected to the fire hydrant to flush. And then temporary patch with some base rock on the right will come in and put some cold patch down, and then we'll put this on the list to have final paving completed. And generally what will happen is we'll work with the county to get compaction so that when the final page is complete, everybody is happy. This is a great image. This is kind of the aftermath of snowplow operations. Invariably, we're going to hit a fire hydrant here and there, and we had our share during these atmospheric river storms. Luckily, those fire hydrants have breakaway couplings that bolt set almost into a groove on the pipe. They can bolt and keep the fire hydrant there, and if something comes to hit it, a car, snowplow, it can break those bolts away or break that flange away and not break the whole pipe or the whole shoe and everything out of the ground. We've had that this winter also, but this one was, put the hydrant back on. So that's good news. This is an image you don't very often see, but valve exercising is part of our distribution crew's work efforts. And it's an important work effort because if you don't operate a valve for 10 years and then you need to go shut it down, and it's full of manganese, the next thing you know, you can't shut it. And so I don't know how many times that, you make the phone call and, hey, Cindy, can you come down here and meet me at the corner of blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to put some cheater bars on this thing and we're going to try to get this thing closed. And the next thing you know, the broken valve.
Right.
And so it's really important to get out there and operate all of the valves. Here, Matt Jarnigan is doing just that. So when you think about CARB, you think about Matt is not in the middle of the street operating this valve. He's in the bushes. And we have a lot of cross-country mains, and this is oftentimes unique to the mountain counties water utilities. And we've had Justin Caparuso and I have had conversations with Michael about the fact that there are some unique constraints that are put upon mountain counties when it comes to vehicle operation and operating our infrastructure out in the woods. And so hopefully when 2027 comes around, we have the 4x4 super electric, ultra powerful, ultra modern pickup truck and VAC-on that can take us anywhere we need to go. But in all reality, it's not going to happen. So we need to have some other plans in action.
Challenge.
This is a slide I think Brad Arnold and Kelly Gerkensmeyer will love. So Doug Turner, our distribution senior over in West Point, has analyzed the distribution system maps and went out and found flow meters that existed throughout the system that actually tell us how much volume of potable water goes to which zones of the distribution system. And so he's exposed them. You can see he's marked the valves in the image on the left, cleaned up on top of the vaults. That is the picture of the actual flow meter in the vault on the right. And then right next to it is basically the head of the flow meter sitting outside of the vault. So you can go get a read, or you can connect that to your SCADA system without having to crawl down into the vault every single time. And so that's what, and the image on the right shows you kind of what it looks like all put together. You got the vault with the traffic rated lids, you got the in valve, out valve, and then you have the small box, like a B24 box, we call it, that would have the meter head in it. Some of Doug's other work. So some of you have been to the Middle Fork of the Macomb River pump station. It looks like a park now. Doug went down and basically cleaned every last leaf and everything out of there. It's just fabulous. It's ready for a 406 mitigation project from FEMA to rehabilitate the pump station related to atmospheric river storms that we've had. We'll see if we're successful, but the effort continues. Here's the lift station in West Point. Doug cleaned this one up as well. You've got a shot of the roof here, half cleaned on the left, fully cleaned on the right.
Wow.
Just really doing great work up there, getting everything cleaned up. Here's another one I actually presented some of these pictures to Dr. Pacheco Werner from the California Air Resources Board the day before the vote occurred. And it was really hard to get her to look at my screen because this is one of those, this is a raw water conveyance from the Bear Creek diversion to our Bummerville Reservoir and our water treatment plant in West Point. And luckily, Pat McGreevy and Jan Bray and their Cal-Am team are working on a fuel thinning project up there to clean the alignment. But if we ever have to get out there and fix anything, I mean, we've got a couple miles of cross-country line that aren't anywhere near a charging station, let alone a civilized generator drop site. So there's a lot to discuss there. Once again, this was a USA location for that Cal-Am team to come in and do a fuel sending project, which is great. Here's our construction crew in action. So this is the Vallecito wastewater treatment facility. They installed a grit chamber. Upstream of the grit chamber, they installed a vault that we already owned. We had down at our lock antenna facility, the image on the right, the black box with the AE concrete, that's a vault. Our construction crew retrofitted the vault to hold a headwork screen. So they basically rerouted the headwork screen, built all the forms and poured the concrete so we could connect it. And then they plumbed that into the grit chamber, which is in the image on the right, it's the vault that's kind of down below.
And how much money did we save by going that route instead of buying a new one?
I mean, this vault, I think, is about a $65,000 vault. So 65 grand.
Today, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, or we just paid it forward some years
I'm
ago.
trying to make them bring it to my attention.
Yeah, and I have a lot of that for you.
Good.
And so you can see the installation of the piping. And so what's important to note here is that when our construction crew works with the operators, they actually analyze all manner of things that could go wrong. If this plugs up and we have to send water this way and we have to fill up this reservoir, can I get a valve here? Can I get a valve there? And if we do this work in-house with material that we own, it's cost effective and we can actually implement all the different options that optimize the operation of our facility. And that's exactly what's going on here. You can see Roger Tyndall. He's phenomenal. He's basically poured the floor and graded the floor of this headwork screening vault. Just did a fabulous job. And so now they will set the vault. This is the actual grit chamber. So Roger and his crew went in there and cut part of the top off. And then we had a local contractor come in and weld us a lid, which is the image on the right. So rather than should somebody ever have to get in here, they have to climb into a 24-inch diameter hole, we cut that out and we actually put a lid that can stay open, that you can put a gas monitor down into, and you can extract people, you can put people on a harness, make it much safer, much more easily operatable for our folks. So it's the project's, knock on wood, it's going fabulously and it's almost done. So it's an in-house project. Our guys did an excellent job. Hats off to them. In their spare time, they repair the deck boards on the trailers over at the Vallecito shop. Here's our mechanical crew out at the Wallace Waste Treatment Plant, repairing, basically replacing the brain of the generator. So oftentimes electrical and mechanical will work together, cross-pollinate a little bit, and the mechanical guys will do some of the work, electrical work associated with the generators. That's what happened here. They diagnosed basically a PLC or a program failure and were able to replace that themselves. These are a couple of wonderful pictures that circle back to atmospheric river storms. So this is what's called a muffin monster. It's got a super popular name, and it is on the upstream side of a wastewater wet well. And this happens to be the Huckleberry Lift Station. So kind of the most popular lift station in Rancho Calaveras, at least at CCWD. And what happened was it broke because it was trying to chew up a bunch of asphalt and concrete. And we all know that all the asphalt and concrete was pushed into the collection system through elevated stormwater runoff. And so when we go to submit for the DR 4699, we'll put in the request for reimbursement for the replacement of the muffin monster. This is about $30,000.
Is that really what it's called, a muffin
It's
monster?
really what it's called. Can't make it up.
Okay.
Can't make it up, but
Very creative.
it's really but you know what? Our guys really like the gosh, I can't remember what it's called now. Lift Station 3 in Arnold, we put a Vaughn chopper pump in, and the chopper pump kills the muffin monster.
Oh,
So
man, sounds
chopper
like a
pump is the
cartoon.
new, that used to be the #1 back
Wow,
10 years
that's
ago, but
big.
now the chopper pump has. And so this is an image of a filter in what's an Orenco pod, this is a wastewater treatment facility at Indian Rock. And it just shows the amount of sludge that was pushed in. This isn't normal. So you don't normally see this much sludge on this filter in the Indian Rock filter system. It's due to all the stormwater runoff, water perking in, finding its way inside of our septic tanks and pushing sludge onto our infrastructure. A little security work here. The mechanics put in guards around all the handles here at the yard, so our industrious neighbors can't find a way in. So hats off to them. They always do fabulous work. Electricians out on site doing telemetry work. So our radio system tells us information related. This is our Azalea Court lift station in Forest Meadows. Tells us information about the status of our infrastructure and also allows us to push out comm. They have a radio inside the panel here. And you can see the image on the right, the laptop sitting on top of the panel, and our guys are reprogramming the PLC. So they basically tell the controller how to operate through a computer program. Same thing happening here at Southworth. Controlling how the program operates, when the pumps turn on, when they turn off. And then our, one of our newest members of our crew, Joseph Sear on the right, with Tommy Sage and David Bias on the collections crew, happily at work in the snow. I think two of them have smiles on their faces.
Looks like it.
Yeah, so thank you guys.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate it.
As always, I like
What's,
your.
how many employees on the construction crew these days?
There are 6.
The 6.
There's 5. Oh, there's 5.
Because I know you had numbers like, I think you had 8 or even up to 10 at one time.
Yeah, so we had 6 up until last October when we created the utility crew. And one of those positions moved over and basically became one of the kind of the founding members of that utility crew.
So you're finding the number is sufficient to cover or?
We could always use more field staff, always, yeah. But they do fabulous work. A crew of 4 people, say on a repair, depending, it's all kind of unique in the situation. I mean, but that,
Yeah.
we can get work done. But the construction crew, the amount of things that we're able to ask them to do with 6 people, they can generally get most all of it done. Sometimes they'll tell us, hey, we could use a couple folks. And sometimes we do say, well, hey, if you need to get somebody in to help you, maybe you have somebody build the lid, right? And you have somebody come in and core the concrete vault. Awesome. We can't do that ourselves. So sometimes we have to use a subcontractor, but they're able to get a lot of work done.
Well, that's what I said this before, I marvel at their analysis of what is wrong and how to fix it, and they find the best way to fix it.
Yeah, they're fabulous. Thank you.
My congratulations, my thanks.
Yeah, I'll pass on the good words.
Ralph, may I have a question for you?
Yeah, just a couple of things. You guys allow service laterals on your hydrant runs?
Generally, no, but we do encounter them often.
Okay, and when I had some line, what do we find? Okay, then on those salad plants, we always do dielectric pushing.
Yes, yep, absolutely, yep. So
We've stocked 2-inch and 2.5-inch cheaper stainless steel that didn't get here in the grass too.
yeah, and we encounter those full circle tap saddles more in, it's kind of a Calypso Bay thing.
Oh,
It was a little bit of a surprise to see it in Valley Springs,
a
actually.
little bit.
Could be, could be. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Damon.
Thank you, guys.
Russ, do you have something?
All those Calypso Bay infrastructure parts came from Russia,
Gotcha. Okay.
Russian developers.
Okay, I understand now. Absolutely.
The same guys that put property lines through the middle of living rooms.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that. Yeah, actually, I've seen some water mains in some interesting places as well.
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Damon. Item 4B, General Manager's Report.
All right, I promised to keep mine to less than twice as long as Damon's. But I want to start off, we don't often shout out the IT crew often enough. And they spent the weekend or at least Sunday here. And I'm not, if I tried, I would embarrass myself to try to describe what exactly it was that they were doing. But what I do know is they made us a lot safer and more secure on the cybersecurity front, and they did a whole lot of cleanup and organization in the server room and the process. And both Brandon and Dylan, I think, have just been doing a great job. And so I just wanted to recognize them for the coming in on the, during the downtime for the rest of the office staff to minimize interruptions, and they're just on top of everything. So wanted to give the IT guys a shout out. Certificate of occupancy for the courtyard, right? Is this week?
Oh, nice.
So it's official. We were already well into moving in and making ourselves at home. So that's exciting.
What's holding up the final?
I know there was the fire panel, but that got done.
Yeah, the only thing left is some of the stormwater runoff. It's under review for a 100-year storm event, whether or not we need to deepen the pit back here. And we don't feel that we do. So there's been some email back and forth with our consultant, actually.
Building department?
No, Weber Geo, actually. So the Public Works just requires the sign off on the stormwater discharge. And then the final's done. Everything else, building department wise, we're done. We just need that to get the final.
So our consultant flagged that.
Correct.
We just had a 100-year storm.
I would argue more than that. Yes, absolutely right.
So
Yeah.
did we survive?
Yes, beautifully.
Well, we're done.
Yes, right.
You're bringing common sense into this, Director Thomas, and you have a tendency to do that. It's not always what we're operating with here.
Unbelievable.
So, and then, and I buried the lead a little bit here. I'm mostly, really excited to introduce, our new district engineer, Mark Rincon Ibarra is here. Been here since last Monday, I think. And so, John is no longer the new guy, took that label. Didn't last very long. Yeah, we're just ecstatic to have Mark on board and continue the good work of the engineering department.
Well, welcome, Mark, and I look forward to working with you. Waiting for your first report to us.
So taking Mark down to meet with Bernadette, did he kind of calm the waters down there?
You know, it went really well. And so I don't think it was a coincidence that Mark was there. Things went smoothly. Yeah. Let's see, where were they? Oh, and then, so we were, as I think John mentioned already, briefly, but we had a booth at the fair. Really have to thank Kelly Richards and Kelly Gerkensmeyer and John, for doing all the heavy lifting and getting it coordinated and set up and staffing it. We spent a lot of time out there this year, much more so than, past years. And it just, I got a lot of really good feedback from our staff and the valuable conversations that they were able to have with a lot of people, answer a lot of questions. I was out there on Friday and just happened to have the good fortune to be there when both Larry Thompson and Randy Bowersock stopped by at the same time. And we were sharing this big booth with Utica and UPUD. And so, the three of us got to kind of stand there and reflect on the fact that we're able to do this now. And that those three agencies were coordinating on a fair booth and not just sharing the cost of the booth, but staff, really working together, answering, questions for each other's agencies. It was just it was great to talk to those two guys about it because it just was a striking reminder of how far those relationships have come. Because, I go back with those two a ways now, and we've been through some much more difficult times than what we're experiencing now. And, the fact that these agencies are cooperating to the extent that we are now is really remarkable. And I think the fair booth kind of captured that in a really meaningful way. So it was more than just, shaking hands and kissing babies. I think it was really kind of symbolic of how that has changed, because it used to be the booths were on the opposite ends of the room and weren't necessarily saying nice things about each other. So it was great to see that how that has evolved. The Aqua Conference was really productive this year. And for me, I think Director Ratterman, I think you had mentioned you wanted us to bring back our highlights. For me, the Headwaters Work Group, really good discussion there. The Region 3 meeting, both of those were highlights for me, but also just some in-between meetings, the opportunity to catch up with other agencies that have gone through relicensing recently, and learn some lessons from them. I had some really valuable discussions on that front, and there's been some follow-up already since the conference. So for me, I think those were the biggest highlights, in addition to Director Ratterman's dramatic election victory. It was exciting. I mean, what was it, 12 different candidates for 4 vacancies, and then it came down to came down to 4 for 3 vacancies. And it's meaningful for the district. It's great for CCWD to have that presence, also to have that, just kind of goes to show the acknowledgement and the respect that CCWD has in the water industry to elevate one of our board members to that position. But also for Scott to win that seat and take on that challenge, I think is great for JPIA, and it's great for the district. So well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
To the rumor that somebody's requesting a recall or a recount.
I would not be surprised if somebody was requesting a recall. It was an interesting process. And despite the speculation immediately after, I have not noticed Scott being any harder to be around than he was before. His ego seems fully in check. Head size exactly the same.
Still a brat.
And not any easier either.
Not any easier. No, that's true. No, but it was meaningful. We have a couple of temp workers starting. Thank you to Mother Lode Job Training. One you'll probably see at the front desk, and then another one that's going to come and help us scan. So.
Oh, that job.
It'd be nice if we see some file cabinets disappear over time. So that's always, we're always really grateful for the additional help. It gives our customer service staff an opportunity to spend less time, just dealing with answering phones and folks that are here at the window, which is obviously a priority, but it frees them up to do other things in terms of projects that we have them working on. So we're excited about that. And then a couple of things on the town hall, on the outreach front. I did a presentation to Valley Springs Rotary last week. This week, it's all blending together. Yeah, that was last week.
Tuesday.
I was pinch hitting for Director Ratterman, who was out of town, and it was a small group, but really great group of people, and had a good discussion there. We had, and then we'll have a staff presence, and I think Director Thomas will be at community plan meeting in Copperopolis this week. So we're looking forward to
Tomorrow night.
Yeah, hearing from the planning department and participating in that meeting. And then lastly, we had a camera meeting here last week. And I think it was mainly they wanted to hear from Brad on the update on the water rights legislation. And so there was a discussion of that. Yeah, overall good roundtable discussion of the camera agencies.
Is that planning meeting in Copperopolis? Is that gonna be discussing the biosolids facility?
There's a new target in Copperopolis that is no longer us. So we're hoping that it's taken our place, but we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up. That's all I had.
You were going to try to find out something about the McCollum River Association.
Certainly.
Yeah.
We've inquired and haven't received a response, to my knowledge, right? So we, it seems to have, maybe it's a COVID casualty at this point, because we haven't had one since pre-COVID. But we can reach out to those folks again and see if there's interest.
Didn't we host the last one
we did? Yeah.
Colony Home.
Yeah, that was 2019.
Come and go.
Okay, we're gonna move. Thank you, Michael. We're gonna move on to board report.
I'm sorry. There was one more thing on my list.
No.
I just wanted to mention. I just wanted to mention their follow up to the conference. Dave Egerton was actually here today.
Here?
So we had a good discussion with him. He was visiting a couple of the GMs in the region. So brief meeting, but a good opportunity to catch up with him and get it's interesting having his perspective in the statewide leadership role that he's in now, but also the local knowledge that he has of our district and talking to him about some of the issues that we're facing. So I think you may be seeing him sooner rather than later.
Yeah, he said he wanted to come to one of our meetings.
Yeah.
So. Did he sit in your chair?
Of course not.
You got the bigger office now.
No, he got one with shorter legs.
Exactly, yeah. He had a small chair.
Just so it's separately.
We treated him well.
Okay, good. Good to hear you.
So with your crown, you need something with hires.
Yeah, no, I should be like up there somewhere, right? No, thank you, Michael. Board reports, information, future agenda items. Bertha said she's ready.
Okay, I'm ready. At the conference, I was at the presentation by the fellow from the city manager from Paradise and heard everything. And Kelly was there and Brad was there. And so we've just got a real, thorough rundown of what it is. Prepare for the worst. Very simple. So one of the things that I was thinking is that from a county perspective, have we ever done a wildfire practice?
Gee, who could we ask about that? I'm really glad you brought that up. I wasn't in that one, but I heard a lot of really
Oh,
positive
yes,
things about it.
absolutely.
And I was talking to Dave about it today, and it came up in the Region 3 board meeting as well. I think that topic is really on the forefront of water agencies' minds right now. And I know Region 3 and Mountain counties are focusing on it. And I think John is going to become, kind of a central leader in that discussion, considering his background.
Mhm.
And we did a tabletop here during our emergency response. Yeah, when we updated our emergency response plans, we did a tabletop exercise here. So yeah, but I think we'll be doing more of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I was thinking more in terms, the water agency has, but I was thinking of the community. I mean, we had a wildfire preparedness up in Ebbets Pass, talking about all the different things that could happen. And so that was, outreach with the community. But, for us to have a stop, there's a fire in, Valley Springs. What do? We can't go.
So I know that one of the things that the county Office of Emergency Services has is they have a grant funded position for, it's actually the county coordinator is the name of the grant for mitigation projects. But a big part of the grant, I happen to be familiar with it, I wrote it, deals with conducting workshops, attending workshops like the one in Ebbets Pass. Actually, Baljeet was there. He also spent a lot of time at the fair, just doing that individual level outreach. The unfortunate part about where we live is generally almost every practice that we have is live. In the 3 years and 10 months that I served as the emergency services director, I opened 19 emergency operations centers. The majority of those were either one of two things, a snow fight, snowmageddon, or a wildfire. So like last year was the Electra up West Point Way. The year before, 2 years before that was the Arola fire on the other end of the county. So it is often exercised. And then the outreach that's done is really done at a grassroots level with, I presented to the Rotary Club in the past. I presented to the Murphy's Rotary Club in the past. So they're making headway in that arena. And one of the things that kind of is difficult about kind of the turnover that we have here in the rural area is about the time we get everybody trained and think, okay, well, it's time for a tabletop, because tabletop is worthless unless you're trained, right? That then we have to go back into that training cycle because we're not dealing with the same players. So we try it. There's also ample opportunities to do tabletops. Like Damon said, I was represented the county at the CCWD exercise, but PG&E does an exercise. There's they actually just did an active shooter exercise up over here on this side, on the west side. So
yeah,
they're working at it.
Okay. Well, one of the things that this the manager from Paradise wanted to really emphasize is the fact that, you know, CCWD employees are going to be going out there to do what they can, you know, to protect the water. But what are we doing for them? You know, what plans do we have in case their house burns down? You know, that kind of thing. The overall picture of disaster recovery.
Now,
is-
one of the things that he said was there was out of their 34 employees, 30 of them lost their houses.
Right,
And were out
right.
dealing with, you know, with personal stuff, and they were looking for other people to come in to run the water district. And that's what they had, that's what they
Yeah.
suggest for
So-
everybody else to do.
Yeah,
Someone
to,
backup jobs from other agents.
to, you know, develop your partnerships so that, you know,
We're already I mean, involved in doing that with, our emergency response. What do they, and then a signed contract with TUD,
Yeah,
PPUD
we've got 3 of those in place now.
and
Mhm.
Utica.
yeah, okay.
Anything
Um,
else?
Phone numbers for customers, because we're not gonna have, you know, communication is gonna be one of our big problems. So I have a whole list of this and we can talk about it, you know, I don't have to take time to do it here, but
Great.
just, it was a very detailed presentation, and so I, you know, as I say, it took a whole page of notes, so, okay, White Pines Park, I attended their meeting, and they're back into the issue of people throwing garbage out there at the lake. It's, you know,
Mm.
just. And so all they can do is call the sheriff or.
Oh, illegal dumping.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
okay.
A lot of garbage and everything, but. Other than that, we're getting ready for our 4th of July parade where Ebbets Pass will have its population. I mean, they're looking at something like 8 to 10,000 people up there in Ebbets Pass for the 4th
That would
of
be
July.
all year.
Are the campgrounds open up high?
Not yet, I don't believe.
Spicer is still closed
Yeah.
and the road is open only to Alpine, but there's still a lot of snow up there.
Mm-hmm.
Just past Alpine, the second gate.
Yeah,
We're gonna get a lot of pressure like at, White Pines and these other places because we're not gonna be able to camp up high.
right.
You know, Hogan, all those places are gonna be packed.
Yeah, there's still snow in Big Trees Village. You know, patches of snow.
Mhm.
And so the crews know that. So winter's still here.
Director
it.
Davidson.
Well, my dog ate my notes, but I took them on.
Okay.
No, I don't, I enjoyed, obviously the Aqua, the great, hanging out with, all the same old people. But I did at least get my, training done, and so, for the next 6 years, I should be good. That's all I
I
have.
think it's 2 years, isn't it?
I don't know, I found out how far you can get along.
Yeah. Okay. What'd you like best, the harassment prevention or the ethics?
They were exactly the same, when I took them 6 years ago.
That's what I remember too. Anything else?
Nope.
Director Thomas.
Well, I am happy to report to all of you that I too have a certificate of occupancy for
Good.
my house. Is there a bell I can ring or something? It's,
Ding, 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 ding.
how long did it take the district to do that? 2 years? It's taken me about a little over 4, but anyways. You can't rush these things, though.
No.
I'm learning. But it does feel really good to have the prospect of moving in soon. Aqua, that was really good to be there. Want to re-emphasize how proud that I am and we all are of your accomplishment there. That was good.
Thank you.
You worked hard, and that was kind of evidence of how well hard work pays off. You asked us to pay attention to what we were learning over there, and I was particularly impressed by one booth at the where the vendors were on display. And I think that Michael has talked to you about the inline hydro. I mean, if we're blowing up PRV valves, I mean, we're bound to have places in our system that where an inline hydro would be close enough to one of our facilities to power up the facility. You know, I'm not foolish enough to think we could hook a line to it and charge our new electric VACCON. But you know, it seems to me that from what I saw with the one that I was focusing on was a 30 kW potential inline hydro. I mean, most of our isolated plants could run on 30 kW, I think. But that was good, and some of the outbreak sessions. You know, that you mentioned the PG&E one where the lady was saying, "Hey, we can't do this." Electrification. Yeah. So I thought it was really humorous, but that somebody said that look, if you're not in compliance, you won't be able to register your vehicles. And then somebody else stood up and said, we're all exempt from that anyway. Don't worry about it. But the alternative to getting our panties in a twist about buying new vehicles and everything, I thought was pretty interesting, is that we can buy anything that we need and use it for 18 years, as I understood them to talk about. So that we should be looking at it from that standpoint, I believe. Director Davidson will be gone from this board probably within 18 years, but I'll be around. So. But how many more terms would that be? That's four terms more.
4.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm going to hang in here as long as I can. I can't let you get the record for the most years. Okay. The most disappointing and alarming thing that I heard was at the district or the Region 3 meeting when Brian from Aqua stood up and said, "Look, you know, we've got a left-leaning governor, we've got a left-leaning legislature. These water rights bills are going to pass." It's just
Scary.
that was really. I mean, everybody's talking about we got to do something, got to do something. And he said, "It's going to pass. Get used to the fallout."
Yeah, and I think the question is, what version of them will pass? And that's where Aqua's advocacy and our, you know, where all water agencies have to chime in and lean hard on the legislature to narrow them down in scope to something that is manageable for us and doesn't completely, you know, pull the rug out from the water rights system.
But also most of those will be challenged in court. I can't imagine.
Oh, yes, it will be good.
It's just
water
like,
rights
it's a big
litigators.
lawsuit, you know, Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's very. It dismays me to think about that all these agencies up and down the state are like us. We have rights to go back prior to 1914, and somebody is bold enough to say, well, that was then and this is now, so we're going to take them away from you. I don't know how that works. Government, yeah. The other thing that we had in our agenda packet, this deal about your selection to the Region 3 board. They kept talking about we have a deadline of the June 16th to have the designated signer selected or delineated.
Our elector, essentially, yes.
Yeah. So is that different than having a board resolution?
Yes. So
Yes.
that is just a process of us identifying who will cast our vote for Aqua president and vice president. Which is different than.
You and I have
Who
done
is
that in past years where we show up at the lunch and we have the vote. You and I sat at a table and decide
Yeah.
who we're gonna vote on at one point. But I think Michael usually, do you usually give it to somebody? I've done it before by
It's
myself.
usually a board member, but I'm usually the alternate in case the board member's not there.
Okay, so we're on top of that.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's, like you, my dog partially ate my last food, but, that's the most important things I was remembering. So I'm done.
My turn.
Director
So my dog didn't eat my notes. I just happened to leave them at home. At least I admit that. However, it was my first Aqua conference. I really enjoyed it. I got to meet a lot of people that I've heard their names, never put a face to a name, so that was really good. Coming in behind these three, they've already touched on everything because we all kind of went to most of the same sessions. But I enjoyed the meetings on Monday and Tuesday with JPIA. Just listening to how the committees, I went to so many of the committee meetings. It's really kind of interesting and amazing how JPA has all these different, it was the JPIA meetings, right?
They only had on
Or they
Tuesday, I think
mixed.
they did Jeff's class
Yeah.
and, but I
These
think
were right here.
all the committee meetings were Aqua committees.
Okay, well, then it was the Aqua
Yeah.
committees, but it was really interesting how there were so many different ones and how people were working. It's just nice to see how many people are working on so many different projects and how you have to separate it like that to really get something done. So, that was cool. I think not my favorite one, but the most interesting to me was the electrifying the vehicles. And one of the takeaways is our state is not ready for it. And then also the big takeaway is, did I hear him correctly, that you could buy one now and you have 18 years to use it now without it being electric, a new rig, or 850,000 miles, then you have to upgrade it, whichever comes first, I think. So there was that. In the exhibitor hall, one of my favorites was we had these water sniffing dogs. And so I chatted with them a while and they were trained to sniff out chlorine. And that's how they were able to find line breaks and stuff like that.
How did I miss that booth? Let's get on
Oh,
that.
the dogs were great. I can't remember their names, Lily and something, but that was my favorite.
Wow.
Have you seen that? That was,
Yeah.
no, and a couple dogs, they're like trained to,
Yeah.
get your.
And they were so
Uh,
awesome. I just sat on the floor with them, and let the guys talk, and I played with the dog. So that was my favorite. So all in all,
I bet they're more effective than water witching, which I am a skeptic.
I would think, yeah. Anyhow, it was, I was really glad I went.
The claim was that they could detect it 25 feet deep, coming out of dirt, over asphalt or under
Kind of
asphalt.
interesting.
No concrete though. They can't get the odor coming through concrete. So.
So, the IRWM meeting last week was good.
Yeah.
There's still some funds for putting in a water filling station. So I talked to Brad a little bit
Yeah.
about that because there's, hey, we got the money already. Somebody needs to put in a water filling station. So I talked to Brad, so we'll see where that goes.
And we started looking into it and we had a little bit of a debate about where the most pressing need would be in the county. And then sure enough, I think it was Thursday, at least one, if not more, people came up to Kelly Gherkinsmeyer while he was at the booth at the fair down in Copper. And we're talking about wells going dry and the need for one of those
Yeah.
filling stations. And so we've kind of focused in.
So Copper, is that considered the Highway 4 corridor though?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Because the last
Oh,
time.
yeah,
wasn't it
duh.
in
I
the-
was thinking the
It's a
Stanislaus, I mean.
It's a Stanislaus River service area. Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't we have one in the Wallace area?
I mean, Highway 4.
Not like this. We have a few fill stations, but not the kind that we're talking about is like CCWD has right out here. Yeah, no, we don't have any of those.
So that might happen to come up. And then at the meeting last week. You weren't there, Scott. Camera. And so I saw Jack Garamendi and he says that West Point, him and some other women are putting together a fire meeting. I want to say it's June 8th, but I have to confirm that. So that might be an opportunity for an outreach.
Absolutely. Yeah, let us know. That'd be
Okay,
great.
I'll find that out later today and get back to you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna try and be quick. I want to thank everyone again for all your support for the my JPIA executive committee, and that is a big deal. But I know it, and thank you for all the accolations and my crown. Anyway, our DC trip has been. I thought you might cover that, but
No,
our
I
DC
forgot.
trip has been canceled due to everyone else is going on vacation from DC. Also, we were going to fly out there on Monday, the Memorial Day, and then spend that week there, but no one's there. So
And the government may be closed.
That's right.
So-
They might have a long Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
but we have virtual meetings setting up for the following week. It looks like one that for the following week. That's for the Federal Affairs Committee.
You still get to claim your mileage. So,
No, I don't think so. No, they didn't turn in any receipts for meals either.
okay.
Future agenda items. I'd like to get something where we are on grants. I mean, what grants we're applying for, what grants we're in process of, what grants we're going to be applying for future, and just get a stream set, maybe
Spreadsheet.
every once in a while, just a refresher on where we are with the grants that we're applying for right now and what's coming up in the future.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll do it. All right.
Okay, I think we got a lot of time for the rest of this year to just stick that in there. The other one that we came up earlier today with future agenda item is the wastewater on tax rolls. We're still
So
looking.
the plan is to bring that to finance committee probably within the next couple of months, and then we can bring it. We wanted to get through budget and rate study, but we can start bringing that discussion to the finance committee first and then to.
Okay, and you got the one page thing I got, okay. The aqua committees, I'd like to encourage all of us to get on an aqua committee. There's 10, 12 of them. I'm on two of them, and I'm a reporter on local communities, and I also attend Federal Affairs Committee. But there's Michael's on a state ledge and energy. Right?
Yeah.
You on energy? And I think, there's a lot of room for there's 10 others that we could join, and if we coordinate them through Michael to get on something, and then staff that goes to aqua should also be on the committee.
Yeah, we have several staff members: water quality, groundwater, water management, local government, like you mentioned.
Membership.
A lot of different participation, because it's good to bring all of that back to the district. Yeah.
In about 6 months, I'll be ready to reapply to go back on the membership committee. We were.
Well, yeah,
with
we
you
were-
with that one. We were with
It's
you.
not going to be 6 months. It's going to open up in June. Next month is when there are no people on the committees. You got to reapply to the committee if you've been on it before. And
They don't turn you down.
You could go ahead and, for membership, you can go ahead and do it. You can register now, is the time, the window to apply.
I think it's June 20th it opens up, and then it closes like in August sometimes. So there's a good window.
Oh, that's right.
I
The
just
region,
reported-
the region boards are before that, and then the committees are. after
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's all the. committees.
And what I brought away from it was on water rights. I went to a thing on water rights,
Oh, yeah.
and all these are gonna, it's kind of scary. Something's gonna pass water rights. The other one that's scary that Aqua is not taking a position on, that we didn't see at Aqua, was AB 1717, that came out last year, was vetoed, was passed by both legislative branches of our California government. It was sent to Newsom. He vetoed it. It's on paying prevailing wages for forest management.
Yeah.
It's kind of a silly concept, but it's going to pass this year. It will definitely pass this year. The governor will sign it. We're working on cutouts, carve-outs in mountain counties. Aqua's not taking a position on it. It's and I guess that's because of the labor relationships that they have right now that they're not going to lose. But mountain counties is working hard on it. Our legislative advocates at the Capitol are working daily on it. Justin is having meetings. We got a meeting with the Mountain Counties committee on Friday morning at 8 to kind of discuss the carve outs for it. That's an important thing that's going on that we're not going to see it all. We're not going to see at Aqua. And I think
No, we're directly engaged on that one too, even though Aqua is not taking a position on it, but we're involved in that coalition.
and that's all I have. Next thing on our agenda is next board meetings, June 14th at 1 o'clock here and June 28th, right here. And Becca, I will have my orientation at Aqua JPIA the 13th, 14th and 15th of June, so I won't be at that first meeting. But in the second meeting, I'll be out of the country on vacation, family vacation. So
Can you do a remote?
Excuse me, don't we have a budget workshop on the 14th?
On the 14th.
Yeah,
yeah, that's our next
well,
regular
okay,
board meeting.
All right.
14th.
so.
Right, during the regular board meeting on the 14th and then budget adoption at the second meeting in June, and I will not be at that one either.
Oh,
You're afraid to come or what?
Well, my discussion when I talked to President Ratterman and Jeff about it, Jeff Meyer about it, the discussion was, well, if we're not done by then, we're in bigger trouble.
yeah.
Vacation, so we'll be done by then.
So did I understand that you say that you will not be here for the 14th?
No, you'll have the reins
Okay,
and the 28th.
well, I've 2 meetings in a row. You might as well not come back.
I'll try and get back in the door. Let's see if you'll let me.
Okay.
Okay, we're going into closed session for one potential case. So we'll come back in with any reportable action after that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rebecca. Oh, bye, bye.